writing a diary to vent and let Iron Man see it. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Tony has a warm heart. Lin Feng is now slowly becoming numb. The timeline has deviated from what he imagined. Tony Stark did not go to Afghanistan, but got rid of a bad A in advance, and then made his own Mark armor. He has been flying around in the sky these days, showing off. Others don't know who is in it, but Lin Feng knows at a glance that it is Tony Stark. Today is just Tony Stark's official admission that he is Iron Man. And without experiencing the life and death test in Afghanistan, Tony Stark actually still has that kind of perception and shuts down the weapons department. It can be said that it is beyond Lin Feng's expectations. He thought that Tony Stark would not choose to shut down the weapons department this time, but he still did it. However, at this time, Stark Industries Group is already Tony Stark's one-man show. The other shareholders either went in like a bad A or did not dare to resist Tony Stark's authority. Seeing this, Lin Feng can only say that this is probably the power of plot correction. No matter how outrageous this timeline has become, because of his arrival, the timeline can be repaired. Tony Stark, the soul of the Marvel Avengers, has finally done what he should do. Then, it should be the time when Stark Industries stocks plummet. Lin Feng immediately called his stock manager and asked him to buy all the stocks. When Stark Industries stocks plummeted, when Tony Stark announced the emergence of new clean energy, these stocks will soar again. According to Lin Feng's estimation, this wave can at least make more than $100 million and completely achieve financial freedom. Although there is still a huge gap compared to the rich and powerful like Tony Stark, it is already quite good. At least it is enough for Lin Feng at this stage. At the same time, behind the press conference of Stark Industries, Tony Stark turned around and left the venue without paying attention to the questions of many reporters behind him. Behind him, Pepper Potts quickly caught up and asked, "Tony, why didn't you tell me that you are the Iron Man?" How should I put it, Pepper? It's complicated to say, but now you know it. Tony Stark thought about it and didn't know what to say. He absolutely couldn't tell Pepper Potts about the diary. Many things recorded in it were very dangerous, and he didn't want to involve Pepper in these unknown risks. Of course, the most important thing is that Tony Stark and Pepper Potts haven't reached that point yet. Although they are much closer than ordinary boyfriends and girlfriends, they just haven't broken that window paper. How can I feel at ease with you like this? You are flying around all day now. What if something goes wrong? Pepper Potts didn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be if the machine broke down and Tony Stark fell from the sky. Hey, Pepper, you have to believe in my technology. There will be no problem, Tony Stark said to comfort her. He was still very confident in his skills, although in the previous video, he was beaten badly in his first appearance. It was all because of the size difference and the incompleteness of his arc reactor. Believe me, I have carefully considered this matter. Tony Stark continued to comfort him. He couldn't tell the truth either. After all, he couldn't say that it wouldn't take long. If he didn't do it well, he might face the invasion of aliens and gods, and there was a high probability that he would die directly in the end, right? And Tony, why have you never discussed with me that you want to close the military industry? Pepper said angrily. She was almost mad at Tony Stark. She felt that she had spent her whole life cleaning up Tony Stark's ass. This guy, although a super genius, was also a super willful bastard. From various things in the company to various things in life, there was almost nothing that didn't give her a headache. How should I put it? I found that a bad day exported our company's arms to the hands of those warlords in the Middle East, causing countless deaths and injuries. You know, for me, I make weapons to protect my people, not to kill innocent civilians. My conscience can't stand it, Tony Stark said. Pepper looked at Tony Stark in shock, as if he was a little shocked that he could say that his conscience couldn't stand it. Although she knew that Tony Stark was essentially a good person. You have been an arms dealer for a long time. Are you really turning a deaf ear to those things? Facing Pepper's doubts, Tony Stark said, I don't want to waste my time fighting with humans on Earth. Tony Stark spoke his mind. Since he knew about the threats of many aliens, gods, and even the multiverse, he suddenly had no interest in the intrigues on Earth. Just like he found a brand new toy, he regained his enthusiasm. He wanted to protect humans from those threats. For him, who claimed to be the real protagonist, he immediately convinced himself to devote himself to this great cause. In short, I have my considerations. As for the company's profitability, I have other ways. I will submit a plan to you later. Take a look. I have a brand new alternative source of income. I can make much more than now, Tony Stark said with the final word. Seeing this, Pepper could only give up persuading her. She knew Tony Stark's habits too well. Once he made a decision, it would be the final decision. In that case, I'll wait for your plan. Damn it, I have to clean up this mess for you. The company must be in a mess now, and the reporters outside are like crazy, Pepper said helplessly. Suddenly, at this moment, her phone rang. She looked and saw that it was from a general in the military. He gestured to Tony Stark and said, "They can't find you now, so they must have come to me." Stark Industries has been operating in the military for decades, with a huge network of relationships and complicated relationships. It has no idea how many people it has interests with. Now it is suddenly closed, and the series of follow-up matters it faces are simply a mess. Please, I'll give you a long vacation after this matter is over. Tony Stark smiled apologetically and said, "Ask for a recommendation vote." Chapter 27. Tony, is Lin Feng not a human being anymore? After habitually handing over a bunch of messes to Pepper, Tony Stark took a helicopter directly back to his mansion. He finally made this decision to shut down the arms department. This was the result of his serious thinking. Although he was not kidnapped in Afghanistan, he finally came to a similar conclusion. For him, money is innate, and making money is nothing, but what he pursues now is to make clean money. Rich and talented, that's how willful. Jarvis, what is the stock price now? Tony Stark asked as he walked towards the basement. The stock price has been cut in half now, sir. In fact, you can announce at the same time that you have developed a new clean energy, and the cold nuclear fusion technology has been conquered by you. At that time, the stock of Stark Industries will not only not fall, but also soar. From a rational analysis, this is the best for you. Jarvis' voice came from Tony Stark's Bluetooth headset. That's right, but I also want to buy back more shares in my hands. Tony Stark said, "It's a good opportunity to take back all the shares that can be taken back." Tony Stark had previously taken back a lot of shares when Abadiad and several shareholders were arrested, but it was still not enough. The fact that Abadiad was able to manipulate the board of directors sounded a warning to him. Besides, isn't that Lin Feng counting on the decline of Stark Industries stock every day, so that he can buy at the bottom? Then give him this opportunity. Tony Stark said with a smile. "Sir, I don't understand." Jarvis said. "Because the more you give him, the deeper his attachment to us will be, and the deeper his sense of belonging will be." Tony Stark said. "Before, didn't we work with Nick Fury to do a psychological profile of Lin Feng? From his usual words and deeds, his online comments, and even his conversations with his current parents, it can be seen that he has no sense of belonging here at all. He doesn't even have much social interaction until now. Can you believe it? He now has more than 20 million assets under his name, and his family has assets of over 100 million. I have never seen a rich second generation like him live like this. What does he do every day? Practice, and then go out to do justice, like an ascetic monk. What sense of belonging can he have here?" Tony Stark said that he and Nick Fury had jointly conducted a psychological profile analysis of Lin Feng's psychological condition. Both of them were patients with severe persecution delusions. Knowing that Lin Feng was a soul from another universe, no matter how much Lin Feng appeared to belong to the justice and lawful camp on the surface, he would still not feel at ease in his bones. One of the conclusions of the analysis was that Lin Feng was also a human in other universes, and should also be a Chinese. So judging from this point, the universe where Lin Feng originally lived might be similar to their universe, and the Earth was also similar. It is still uncertain whether Lin Feng can suddenly return to his universe, but he may return to China at any time. After all, he is a Chinese with a good family background. He once said in his diary that, if he really couldn't make it, and the world was too dangerous, he would return to China, at least away from the center of danger. Although it was only mentioned occasionally, it was very dangerous for Tony Stark and Nick Fury. Lin Feng's existence was too important. Whether it was in S.H.I.E.L.D. or Tony Stark, it was the highest level of confidentiality. It was related to the future timeline, and they were counting on Lin Feng to reveal something about the future. Especially when it came to the destruction of the world, the invasion of aliens, and the advent of gods. It was a headache just to think about it. So Tony Stark could have announced on the spot that he had conquered the cold fusion technology and made the market value of Stark Industries soar, but he had to wait for Lin Feng to enter the market. Now Tony Stark, like Nick Fury, was both afraid of Lin Feng and couldn't leave him, and this complex psychology was incomprehensible to artificial intelligence like Jarvis. In addition, there are a series of plans to increase Lin Feng's sense of belonging waiting to be implemented. What is he doing recently? Tony Stark took off his suit jacket, changed into casual clothes, and then sat down at the desk in the basement. According to the results of our satellite monitoring recently, there is no change in his daily life. He still practices his boxing every day, and he is also chivalrous. There are no criminals in the few blocks near his home who dare to commit crimes there, Jarvis said. Tony Stark nodded. He knew something about Lin Feng's actions, and even knew that Lin Feng called himself a native because he was rich and powerful, and launched a satellite specifically for this purpose. Although Lin Feng changed his clothes to go out, combined with the photos of Lin Feng sent down when he was chivalrous as a native, it can be inferred that it was not someone else, but him. This is also in line with Tony Stark's cognition of Lin Feng's Chinese identity. Look, native, what a legitimate name. At first glance, he is a legitimate Chinese. Very good, we should be tougher on those bastards, and expect the law to punish them, haha. Tony Stark admired Lin Feng's heavy-handedness. In the process of eradicating evil, Lin Feng would punish the criminals by beating them to death, breaking their limbs, or crippling their mobility, etc., depending on the crime. As for the other two, whether it was Spider-Woman or Wonder Woman, they basically stopped the criminals, tied them up, and waited for the police to come and deal with them. What else can the police do? The serious criminals caught by Wonder Woman can still be interrogated and sentenced, while those caught by Spider-Woman are mostly gangsters who come out after being locked up for 2 days and continue to bully people. There is nothing else, because the prison is not big enough. But it is worth noting that his strength has become stronger again. Jarvis said. Stronger? How did he become stronger? Did he reach the dungeon written in the information? Tony Stark asked. No, look at this. Jarvis said, and projected a clip directly in front of Tony Stark. That was a picture captured by a surveillance camera in an alley. Lin Feng, who was transformed into a Homelander, punched the entire wall and collapsed it, directly pressing the criminal who was robbing on the other side of the wall to the ground. When Tony Stark saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. Is this the strength that a normal human can have? Isn't it a bit outrageous? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Feasibility Analysis of Anti-Homelander Armor. Happy New Year. Please recommend. This punch shattered Tony Stark's worldview. Although Lin Feng's strength was already amazing, Tony Stark knew that many of his security team members were from the US Special Forces, but none of them could be Lin Feng's opponents. It's not that Lin Feng's killing skills are better than Thor's, it's just that Lin Feng's physical fitness is too abnormal, completely at the peak of human beings. But even at the peak of human beings, it is impossible to collapse a wall with one punch. What kind of scene is this? Not scientific at all, not magic either. What the hell is this? Jarvis, the current world record of human beings. Is there anyone who can achieve this level? Tony Stark said. Human beings currently do not have such ability. Jarvis said. And then we also took a picture of him leaving. In the next picture, Lin Feng left the scene at an extremely amazing speed, like a ghost, with an incredibly fast speed. Even if Tony Stark is blind now, he can probably see how outrageous the strength displayed by Lin Feng at this time is. This speed is like a special effect. Anyway, it is not like a normal human. If he were asked to run 100 meters, he would definitely be able to run within 3 seconds. This is different from the combat power brought by the superb national martial arts boxing that Lin Feng had shown before. This is pure force, infinite power, and amazing speed. So it can be confirmed that he has super speed, super strength, and it is reasonable to speculate that he also has super endurance. As for other abilities, it has not yet been seen. Jarvis said. This is also a division made by Tony Stark, especially when he realized that there are many superheroes and supervillains in this world. He used the previous strength of Lin Feng as an evaluation standard. Since Lin Feng has a physical fitness that can be called the peak of human beings, the speed that exceeds his speed is called super speed, and the strength that exceeds his strength is called super strength. And now, Lin Feng himself has surpassed that limit, possessing super strength, super speed, and even reasonably speculated that he has super endurance, because without this physical fitness, he cannot support such strength and speed. Is he not a human being now? No wonder he comes out to do justice more frequently than before. Tony Stark touched his chin and nodded. In fact, when he and Nick Fury were doing a psychological profile of Lin Feng, they found that Lin Feng had no idea why he felt very insecure. Even though there were still many years before the so-called alien invasion he had mentioned, he just stayed at home and acted very insecure. He wanted to ask, what exactly was Lin Feng afraid of? Both of them were very concerned about what kind of power could make someone like Lin Feng, who could predict the future, afraid. Could it really be that supreme being that was vaguely emerging and could control the entire timeline? The more cautious Lin Feng was, the more nervous Tony Stark and the others became. The more people know, the less they fear. Conversely, the less they know, the more they fear. It seems that as his strength increases, the frequency of his activities will increase, and his sense of security will slowly increase. Tony Stark said. But now that his strength is so strong, we have to overturn the plan for the Mark armor we made for him before. Yes, Tony Stark was secretly developing an anti-Lin Feng armor, or an anti-Homelander armor, when no one else knew. The combat power displayed by Lin Feng before was a bit inhuman, and his normal model Mark armor was designed for normal human enemies, so it had to be strengthened when facing Lin Feng. Now, the anti-Homelander armor has not been designed yet, so the original design needs to be overturned. Deep down, he is still wary of this soul from another universe. People tend to be unscrupulous when they are not in a place they are familiar with. Just like American soldiers, although they are not innocent in their own country, they are far less inhumane than when they are stationed in foreign areas. Killing and shooting local civilians are commonplace, which can only be said to be quite human-like, not human. So the stronger Lin Feng is, the more Tony Stark is afraid that he will lose control. Is it like the anti-Wonder Woman armor, with enhanced power and protection? Jarvis asked. Tony Stark has collected corresponding information on the 3 newly emerged superheroes, among which Wonder Woman's power is the highest, followed by Spider-Woman, and finally Lin Feng. But now Lin Feng has shown a power far beyond the evaluation. It was enough to raise his evaluation to a higher level. Suddenly, just when Tony Stark was about to say something else, Jarvis reminded him, "Sir, the diary has started to update." Tony Stark quickly looked in the direction of the diary, and sure enough, words appeared on it. At the same time, Nick Fury and other core executives of S.H.I.E.L.D. also gathered together. Lin Feng's diary update is the top priority every day. Unless there is an external mission outside, they have to gather together. It's just that the time is difficult to grasp. It won't be another boring weather record today. If so, don't call me. Black Widow Natasha entered the office, stretched her waist, and showed an amazing arc. But these people in the office turned a blind eye and didn't care at all. No, today's content is not. Hawkeye Barton said. The sun was shining brightly on the rooftop of a building. A girl wearing a white spider-striped hooded jumpsuit took off her hood, revealing her originally blonde and cute face. She also held a diary in her hand, and it said, Lin Feng's diary, Gwen Stacy copy. Yes, the Spider-Woman in front of her was none other than Gwen Stacy, who was also the girlfriend of a certain version of Peter Parker. This diary fell from the sky in front of her, just after she messed up a deal with a group of Kingpin's men. Since she was ambushed by Kingpin's men before, she has been causing trouble for Kingpin during this period. This little girl is also very vengeful. But she really couldn't find the original owner of this diary, especially since her name was clearly recorded in this diary, which aroused her curiosity. After the police took these gangsters away, they immediately found a rooftop of a tall building and sat down to read the diary. But the more she read, the wider her eyes became. How could this be? What is this? Happy New Year's Day, everyone. In the new week, more recommendation votes are needed. Chapter 29, Justice League Big 3 vs Avengers Big 3. The contents of the diary were fantastic. What was the expectation? That Tony Stark would be kidnapped? What was Tony Stark going to become Iron Man? She was very familiar with Tony Stark. After all, it was hard for her not to have heard of such a genius. He appeared in various pages every day. Would such a person become Iron Man? And would he sacrifice himself in the end? This was too strange. And that Wonder Woman, was her original name Diana? Was she from a universe called DC? And her universe was the Marvel Universe? The 1999 universe? There were more and more questions in her little head. Not to mention that Thor came later, Captain America returned, the Avengers assembled, and Hawkeye shot Thor to death with one arrow, triggering the invasion of Asgard. She was dazzled by all this. And the so-called zombie Marvel timeline. She couldn't accept it when she thought that the whole city had become zombies. So much information was intertwined, making her little head explode with information. She was originally just an ordinary freshman. After being bitten by an unknown spider, she gained the ability of a spider. Later, she became Spider-Woman and used this power to do justice. She thought she had a broad vision, but she didn't expect that there is always someone stronger than the strong. It turns out that there is such a truth behind this world. Even with her thinking logic, she had to tend to believe it. Unless the video was fake, other people could be pretending, but Tony Stark was always real, unless Tony Stark was also an invited actor. But is there a company in the world that can invite Tony Stark to act? And she saw that this was just a thin diary, not a tablet. But it is so magical that there is such a video that can be played. Isn't this magical enough? Suddenly, words appeared on the blank page at the end of the diary. This is the first time she has encountered such a situation, and she couldn't help but widen her eyes. The self-repair ability of the timeline. I have seen it today. Although Tony Stark did not go to Afghanistan to be kidnapped, he still became Iron Man and closed the weapons department. Finally, I can go out to buy at the bottom, and wealth freedom is just around the corner. Seeing this, Gwen's eyes widened and suddenly remembered that this was the scene mentioned in Lin Feng's diary. Tony Stark closed the arms department, and now it actually happened. She quickly took out her mobile phone from the backpack beside her and then looked at the news. Sure enough, the overwhelming headline was this one. It's true, he still entered. Tony Stark was quite proud when he saw this, which showed that he had completely grasped Lin Feng's thinking. Recently, there are more and more strange things, such as the self-repair of the timeline, that happened to Tony Stark and Wonder Woman Diana. She obviously shouldn't be in this universe, but she still appeared, and it seems that she just left Paradise Island. She is obviously still immature, not like the three giants of the Justice League later. However, they are also the three giants. As one of the three giants of the Avengers, look at you, Thor. You are a good star of destiny, but you are almost a funny man. Look at Diana, she is a goddess. Wonder Woman Diana again. Paradise Island. Jarvis, is there a place called Paradise Island in this world? Tony Stark asked. Yes, there are many places called Paradise Island in this world, but Lin Feng should not be the Paradise Island mentioned by Lin Feng, because those places are not inaccessible, and there should not be a person like Wonder Woman. Jarvis said. The three giants of the Justice League, and the three giants of the Avengers, why do I feel that the two are plagiarized from each other? Tony Stark said with a suspicious look. Why do I feel like they are symmetrical? I know the Avengers, which is the group of superboys that the Egghead invited me to join. Then this Justice League should be the similar alliance in the DC universe that Lin Feng mentioned. These two Avengers, the Justice League, the name is lame, not cool at all. The egghead mentioned by Tony Stark is obviously Nick Fury. This is completely bad from Lin Feng. Once Lin Feng accidentally mentioned it in his diary. Tony Stark felt that it was too vivid after reading it. From then on, Nick Fury became the egghead in his heart. Who is this Thor? What does Cheyenne Shaguxing mean? Tony Stark could understand the funny man, but he didn't understand Cheyenne Shaguxing. Cheyenne Shaguxing is a Chinese word, referring to those who are destined to be alone for life. Jarvis added appropriately. Then this Thor is pretty miserable. Tony Stark thought about it, and he was different. Although his parents died, and his uncle Obadiah betrayed him, he still had Pepper. So, he shouldn't be considered Cheyenne Shaguxing, right? At this time, everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. was also solemn, because the Avengers was established by S.H.I.E.L.D. The key is that after the establishment, there are actually only 2 official members. One is Black Widow Natasha, the other is Hawkeye Barton, and there are only 2 big cats and 3 small cats. Tony Stark is not interested in the Avengers yet, and Bruce Banner has not been contacted yet. Suddenly, one of the 3 giants of the Avengers appeared, called Thor. What the hell is this name? Nick Fury's face looked a little ugly. He suddenly remembered that Lin Feng really loved to give nicknames to others, especially his nickname, Egghead. Now those confidants wanted to laugh when they saw his bald head. It was Lin Feng's fault. So whose nickname is this Thor brother? Thor brother, as the name suggests, should be someone who uses a hammer. He uses a hammer and is related to our Avengers. Could it be Thor? Doesn't he use a hammer? Black Widow Natasha had the fastest reaction and reacted at the first time. Everyone thought about it, and the more they thought about it, the more they thought it made sense. At present, the only superhero they know who uses a hammer and can be related to them seems to be Thor. Moreover, Thor is a legendary god, so his strength is naturally beyond doubt. At least he is stronger than ordinary people like Black Widow Natasha and Hawkeye Barton, and he is absolutely qualified to join the Avengers. Hawkeye Barton's face became a little bad. Doesn't this mean that he may shoot his colleague to death with an arrow in the future? This is embarrassing. Chapter 30 Iron Man. Spider-Man is the number 1 hype? I don't agree. But the really outrageous thing is the appearance of Spider-Woman. Logically speaking, there will be no Spider-Woman in the 1999 universe. The genuine Spider-Man Peter Parker is only 7 or 8 years old now, still a child. However, as Marvel's number 1 hype, Spider-Man has too many derivative universes. In addition to the only male protagonist Peter Parker, Peter Parker's Aunt May, 2 daughters, and lover have all become female Spider-Men. Other derivatives include black people, black women, and even a pig, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a refrigerator, and various Spider-Men. Who knows which Spider-Woman will appear this time? But looking at the design of the one-piece hooded spider suit, it looks like Gwen Spider. But if it is Gwen Spider, it would be a complete tragedy. At that time, Peter Parker will not only not become her lover, but on the contrary, he will become a lizard man and eventually be killed by Gwen Spider. TSK, this pair of lovers is really bloody. In the second generation of Spider-Man Garfield Spider, Peter Parker did not save Gwen and watched her fall to death. It was really hard to let go. And in Spider-Man's parallel universe, Gwen, who became Spider-Man, killed Peter Parker again. This ending is too cruel. Another paragraph of information explosion. There is no doubt that Lin Feng's diary directly shattered the 3 views of everyone who read the diary. Marvel's first hype? Marvel, they know that this universe seems to be called the Marvel Universe. But why is it called the 1999 universe? So our previous understanding was wrong. We thought that the universe we were in was numbered 1999 in Lin Feng's original universe observation, and the nickname was Marvel. But Lin Feng said here that the 1999 universe is Marvel, but Spider-Woman should not appear in 1999, but it is a universe under Marvel, so I think our previous understanding was all wrong. It may be that many universes including the 1999 universe are uniformly named Marvel Universe. Black Widow Natasha suddenly realized and said, and the DC universe should also be classified in this way. These two are a large collection with many different universes. Yes, so what did they name the Marvel and DC universes based on? Maybe the same character in the diary has different incarnations in different universes. For example, Spider-Man exists in different universes, but the way he exists may be very different. Some are male, some are female, and there are even black people, black women, pigs, Tyrannosaurus Rex, refrigerators, etc. But they all have a unified role positioning, which is Spider-Man. Coulson also said with sudden enlightenment. As the first village chief of the Marvel fan novice village, he has studied these newly emerged superheroes and even has a special evaluation report to confirm the good and evil orientation of these people, as well as whether they can be won over, etc. Spider-Woman has emerged very quickly recently and is also within his evaluation range. Nick Fury touched his chin and said, "So, these universes can be uniformly classified under the collection of the Marvel Universe, which means that there are some similar characters, or there may be some similar events, and there is a certain connection." Everyone suddenly realized. At this time, Tony Stark's eyes also lit up, as if he had thought of something. He immediately figured out the difference. Parallel universes are the difference between parallel universes. Tony Stark understood immediately. Although I don't know why there are so many Spider-Men, there is no doubt that these are parallel universes, and many such parallel universes will form an entire Marvel universe, and these universes are also closely related. As for the formation of parallel universes, it is not difficult to guess, because there is a theory of the formation of parallel universes, that is, every decision of every person will split into a new universe. Going out today will form a new universe. Not going out today will also form a new universe. Continuously splitting out to form countless universes. This may be what Lin Feng said, the concept of timeline. Each timeline is a parallel universe that is either completely different or very similar. It seems that there should be a universe where I was kidnapped and almost died. Because I picked up Lin Feng's diary, I didn't go to Afghanistan. So a new parallel universe was born, and a new timeline was born. No wonder Lin Feng always said in his diary that the timeline has become unrecognizable. It is true that it is unrecognizable because of his existence. Every moment is different from the original, which may cause some things that should have happened not to happen, such as his kidnapping in Afghanistan, and caused some things that should not have happened to happen, such as the appearance of Gwen, Spider and Wonder Woman. This is the impact of Lin Feng's existence on this universe, but he himself has not yet discovered the problem. All of a sudden, the universe view has become much more macroscopic. Tony Stark felt that his horizons were about to be opened up with Lin Feng. But this is too weird. Can a pig be a superhero? Can a Tyrannosaurus Rex? I can tolerate this, but what about a refrigerator? Tony Stark really felt ashamed to be associated with a refrigerator, which lowered the status of a superhero. But when he thought about the many parallel universes, there were many completely different Tony Starks, or similar Tony Starks, and he felt a little weird. But he immediately became a little indignant. What do you mean Spider-Man is Marvel's #1 hype? Isn't Iron Man good enough? He really has no vision at all. But this thought only flashed through his mind. He immediately ordered Jarvis, saying, "Jarvis, immediately hack into the government's network and look for population registration information." Peter Parker is 7 or 8 years old this year. Lin Feng is not sure, so let's relax it by 3 years. Oh, by the way, he also has an Aunt May filter according to these data. Peter Parker, right? Peter Parker, the only male protagonist forever, right? Tony Stark said a little unconvinced. According to Lin Feng, Spider-Man is Marvel's #1 hype. Then Peter Parker, who occupies the position of the eternal protagonist among Spider-Man, is not the biological son of the entire Marvel universe, the only protagonist. He wants to see which child is so powerful. A moment later, Jarvis had completed the work of hacking into the government network and screening information, and found Peter Parker's information. Chapter 31, The 3 Spiders in One Frame. Peter Parker, 8 years old this year, lives in Queens. His parents died when he was very young, and he was adopted by his uncle Ben Parker and Aunt May. He is the only candidate among many people named Peter Parker whose age and identity match the information points mentioned in Lin Feng's diary, so I infer that this should be the only protagonist of Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Jarvis projected some information about Peter Parker. Still so young, that is to say, it is the same as Lin Feng's previous speculation. In other words, if it is normal according to what Lin Feng said, then this Gwen spider should not appear, or even if it appears, the age difference with Peter Parker should not be so great. Tony Stark touched the mustache on his chin and said, according to Lin Feng, these two are a pair, and it is doomed to be a tragedy. If Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man, Gwen will die, but if Gwen becomes Spider-Man's universe, then Peter Parker will become a lizard man. It should be the kind of lizard man I understand. It doesn't sound like a good person. Jarvis, strengthen the monitoring of Peter Parker in the future, if he has the tendency to transform into a lizard man, or if he is likely to, report to me as soon as possible. Tony Stark said, okay, sir. Jarvis silently recorded another task of Tony Stark. Anyway, he is an AI computer, and multitasking is a matter of course. And poor little Peter Parker has been labeled as a dangerous person by Tony Stark and the future Shield without knowing anything. And Gwen Stacy was even more shocked, because Lin Feng clearly stated her identity, Gwen Spider. Others may not know what Gwen Spider means, but she knows very well that it is her name, plus Spider-Man Spider. In other words, although Lin Feng has never seen her appearance, he has judged her true identity based on the design of his battlesuit. After she became Spider-Man, this was the first time she met someone who knew her identity. What shocked her even more was that she had always thought that, after being bitten by a spider, she would become Spider-Man, which was a special encounter, but now it seemed that this was a destiny, and there was destined to be a Spider-Man in this world. And this Spider-Man could be herself, or the one called Peter Parker, or a black man, a black woman, a pig, or even a Tyrannosaurus Rex, or a refrigerator. This directly defeated her cognition. What she thought was a coincidence turned out to be destined, and she knew that her future lover was actually a person called Peter Parker. But among the people she knew, there was no one called Peter Parker. Could it be that he was really a child of 7 or 8 years old? In the future, she would actually like a younger brother. Moreover, if she did not become Spider-Man, she would be thrown to death in front of Peter Parker in the future. And if she became Spider-Man, she would have to kill Peter Parker who had become a lizard man. What kind of fate is this? This feeling of having a lover arranged for her, just when she had just started her wonderful life, and even the ending was arranged, made her feel uncomfortable. She thought she had mastered her destiny and her own life, but it turned out that it was all a predetermined result. But before she could think about it, the content in the diary was constantly updated. But if it is Gwen Spider, then it would be interesting. Could it be the Gwen Spider in the Spider-Man parallel universe? That is really my favorite, but in the end, it has to be assigned to Miles, a black second generation spider. I'm unwilling. Well, another black Spider-Man has appeared, and everyone in Shield and Tony Stark are a little numb. There really is a black Spider-Man. It seems that Spider-Man must appear. It's just a matter of who becomes Spider-Man. This Spider-Man, why do I feel like he is similar to the position of God in mythology, or the Godhead? For example, the position of Thor. There are such positions in the East, the West, and even in many different pantheons, but the people are different. Agent Hill said, you mean, this Spider-Man is actually a godlike existence? There will definitely be someone who can become Spider-Man, even if it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, even if it's a pig, even if it's a refrigerator? Nick Fury said with a frown. How come? As he was talking, he began to move from the parallel universe of the scientific side to the mysterious side. But the analysis is very reasonable. Apart from this, there is almost no other explanation that can explain everything in front of him. On the contrary, Gwen saw what Lin Feng wrote in his diary, saying that she was his favorite. Her pretty face blushed slightly. What is this? A fan? But will her future self be with a black person? Although she doesn't have any racial discrimination, she has never thought about such a thing. But then again, if it is really that Gwen Spider, doesn't it mean that the possibility of time travel exists? Then we can not only see Toby Spider, Garfield Spider, and Holland Brother in the same frame, but also various Spider-Men. With the large number of Spider-Men in the parallel universe, it is better to simply form a Spider-Man council like Kang the Conqueror formed Kang's council. But think about it again. One Spider-Man is as talkative as Little Dead. If there is a Spider-Man council, wouldn't it immediately become the world's largest vegetable market? That scene is too scary. Time travel? When the Shield and Tony Stark saw this, their eyes suddenly lit up. Does it mean that time travel has appeared in some timelines where the so-called Gwen Spider appeared? Tony Stark's eyes lit up. Now Lin Feng's diary almost verified the existence of parallel time and space, which provided a lot of new ideas. Of course, the premise is to believe that the assumption that Lin Feng's diary is true and credible. But 3 spiders are in the same frame. According to Gwen Spider's statement, this spider should refer to the general term for Spider-Man. Garfield Spider mentioned before that his girlfriend Gwen died. And which Spider-Man is this Toby Spider? Which one is Holland? What's the difference between these 3 Spider-Men? The more Tony Stark thought about it, the more he felt that the amount of information was too much, and he couldn't help cursing in his heart. Why does Lin Feng like to write nicknames in his diary? Why doesn't he write a name? Now he is completely blind when facing these nouns. Sir, 3 spiders in one frame should mean that 3 Spider-Men appear together. Perhaps it is because of the so-called time travel that this situation occurs. Jarvis reminded, please recommend, collect, and support in every way. Chapter 32, Gwen's death reappears, and it's hard to accept. It's possible, but if time travel is feasible, what technology is used? Wormhole? Or some more unimaginable concept? Tony Stark muttered to himself. Although the extraordinary side has shown amazing abilities, and even gods and time travel have appeared, he is still used to using science to explain these phenomena. In his opinion, it is temporarily impossible to explain. That is just the limited development of science on Earth. No matter what the phenomenon is, the explanation from the extraordinary side and the explanation and understanding from the scientific side are actually the same in essence. Just like thunder and lightning, the power of gods in myths and legends can now be mastered by humans on the scientific side. For everyone in SHIELD, what they can see are countless Spider-Men. They have evaluated the strength of Spider-Woman, who roams in the air in New York every day. Whether it is speed or strength, from the intelligence collected, it must be far beyond ordinary people. It can even be said that except for her complete lack of combat skills, her basic physical fitness is far better than Captain America in the archives. This is just one of the Spider-Men. If, as Lin Feng said, so many Spider-Men can form a Spider-Man council, there must be at least a few hundred of them. The size of a general council is about this. Hundreds of such beings that exceed human limits are a great threat in themselves. The real trouble is not Spider-Man. First of all, Spider-Man should be a superhero, at least not a criminal. But what about Kang the Conqueror? Those who are called conquerors in history, which one of them did not cause endless murders? Said Natasha, the Black Widow. The scariest thing is that the Spider-Man Council is just a joke by Lin Feng, but this Kang Council seems to be real. Let's assume that there is only one identical individual in a universe, or a parallel time and space, then this Kang Council must have at least 100 or 200 people, or even hundreds or thousands of people. We don't know the exact number of people, but one thing is necessary, that is, they must be able to travel through time and space. At least they must be able to communicate through time and space, just like the current TV conferences. Even if we think of him as stronger, he may even be able to travel through time and space in the flesh, and go to different universes. If this is true, then this Conqueror Kang may be a terrorist organization at the cross-universe level. Black Widow Natasha analyzed. Nick Fury nodded. The nickname of Conqueror was generally more common in ancient times, or among some warlords in Africa, but it would not be the mainstream civilization of mankind. Now they know that a person named Conqueror Kang has formed a Kang Council, which can exchange experience and technology from different universes, and may even trade resources. They can fully imagine how terrifying such an organization would be. The key is that just being able to communicate across the universe is already outrageous. After all, humans today can't even fly out of the Earth, and even communication between the Earth and the Moon is very difficult. If you want to go to places like Mars, you have to wait a long time before you get a response. Just from this point, we can see the high level of technology that Conqueror Kang possesses, or maybe it's the level of magic. The more Nick Fury thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. If everything on the surface of this world is considered the surface world, then compared to the surface world, there is also an inner world filled with many things that are not visible to the light, including various gangs, underground organizations, terrorist organizations, and even various mysterious creatures, such as vampires, werewolves, and some strange mysterious organizations and extraordinary organizations, all of which can be included in the inner world. Among them, S.H.I.E.L.D. is also the king of underground organizations. However, it seems that they actually have so many unknown places. This is a bit of a slap in the face. Thinking of this, his dark skin felt a little red, and he was too happy. It turned out that he only knew the tip of the iceberg of the inner world. Gwen's death. I will never let it go. I can save the whole world, but I can't save you. Suddenly, a video appeared at the end of the diary. Seeing this, everyone clicked on it. The screen unfolded, and it began with a young man in armor and a hideous face, staring at Peter Parker, the Spider-Man in red and blue clothes in front of him, and said madly, "I will also take away your hope." This is exactly the clip of Gwen's death in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 uploaded by Lin Feng. Facing the crazy little green goblin Harry, the Amazing Spider-Man Peter Parker shouted in panic, "No, Gwen, run." But it was too late. The little green goblin Harry had already flown directly in the direction of Gwen on his flying skateboard and grabbed her away. "Harry, put her down." Peter Parker chased frantically from behind, but he couldn't catch up at all. The two kept chasing in the air, and the picture kept spinning, making people dizzy. Gwen Stacy outside the picture looked at the Gwen in the picture, who was not exactly the same as herself, and a strange feeling arose in her heart. According to Lin Feng's diary, this is his isotope in another parallel universe. In the picture, the chase between the two sides has reached a bell tower. Spider-Man can't fly, so he can only watch Harry the Green Goblin take Gwen to the sky. He can only helplessly shout, "Harry, this is not you. Harry, put her down. Harry." Gwen also said to Harry the Green Goblin, "Harry is dead." Harry the Green Goblin shouted with an extremely ferocious look, "Harry, this has nothing to do with others. It's just a matter between you and me. Do you want to fight with me? Fight with me. Let her go." Peter Parker shouted loudly, "Okay." Hearing this, Harry the Green Goblin threw Gwen down directly. Peter Parker quickly jumped up and caught Gwen. The two sides fell directly into the bell tower, but before they could be happy, a pumpkin bomb was thrown down and blew them up instantly. At the critical moment, Gwen was caught by Peter Parker. After settling Gwen a little, the battle between Peter Parker and the Green Goblin began. The battle between the two sides was extremely thrilling. Peter Parker was obviously stronger, but he had to take care of Gwen at the same time, so he had no way to free his hands. Both sides tightly grasped each other's necks. Finally, the spider silk broke, and Gwen fell from the sky, accompanied by countless clock tower parts. Peter Parker tried his best to catch Gwen, but it was too late. Chapter 33 Financial Freedom. First encounter with Wonder Woman. Peter Parker could only helplessly hold Gwen's body, hoping that she could breathe, and kept calling her name. "Gwen. Gwen. Breathe. Breathe. Wake up. Wake up. Don't leave me. Gwen. Don't do this, please." The screen went black, and it ended. Everyone who watched all this felt extremely heavy in their hearts. Although they were not ordinary people, or elite agents, or top rich people, or superheroes, in essence, under these identities, they were still ordinary people. Naturally, they had the mentality of ordinary people, and they still felt uncomfortable when they saw these. This was especially true for Gwen Stacy. For her, this was the first time she saw her own counterpart in a parallel universe. Was this how she felt? Was this the fate of the self who did not become Spider-Man as described in Lin Feng's diary? Would she die under the clock tower? Would she be implicated by Peter Parker? She took a deep breath and felt that she still had to rely on herself. She was not the weak self in the parallel universe. Even if she died, she would never be implicated like this. She looked at it for a while, and it seemed that Lin Feng had finished recording in the diary this time. Then she finally put away the diary, took out her daily clothes from her backpack, and changed into them, and then she leisurely went downstairs from the elevator of the building. The people of S.H.I.E.L.D. also dispersed one after another. This time, the diary recorded a lot of explosive information, which was enough for them to digest for a long time. For Lin Feng, this was just his daily diary recording behavior. The market was still immersed in the shock of Tony Stark's announcement to close the arms department. The stock of Stark Industries plummeted, and it was not even 1/10 of the previous price. Lin Feng took the opportunity to acquire a lot of shares. A few days later, Tony Stark announced to the public that he had developed cold nuclear fusion technology, which was a new, reliable and clean energy. As soon as the news came out, the stock of Stark Industries soared. It can be said that Tony Stark became the focus of world attention. Because although Stark Industries was also very large before, it was just an arms group. There is no shortage of arms dealers in this world. However, no country has claimed to have mastered nuclear fusion technology so far, so you can imagine how difficult it is. The new clean energy initiative it proposed has been welcomed by countless environmentalists. In just a short period of time, the shares that had fallen before recovered and even doubled on the original basis. For Lin Feng, it was naturally a big plus, which meant that the 20 million he invested suddenly became 400 million, instantly surpassing the accumulation of 2 generations of his family for decades, and directly became financially free. And this is not the limit. As time goes by, Stark Industries will only get bigger and bigger, and Lin Feng's shares will also rise with it. Lin Feng also had to sigh. No wonder the United States later wanted to deindustrialize. This financial money is too fast. If he honestly does industry, it will take a long time to increase the $20 million to $400 million, and it is still pure cash flow. Many local tyrants with a net worth of more than 10 or 20 billion yuan cannot come up with so much cash. It's a wave of fat. During the Mid-Autumn Festival, a bright moon hung in the sky, pouring its moonlight down to the ground. Lin Feng had just come out of the original owner's parents' house and had just finished the Mid-Autumn Festival family gathering. Now, after several months, he has gradually gotten used to life in this world. Originally, the original owner's parents wanted Lin Feng to end this state of doing nothing during this period and come home to take over. After all, he is a billionaire third-generation rich man. But when Lin Feng pulled out the money he had in the stock market and showed it to them, they knew that their child had made a difference. Lin Feng only said that he had learned to speculate in the stock market during this period and slowly accumulated capital, and then caught up with the stock crash of Stark Industries Group and completed the bottom fishing. His current net worth has surpassed the accumulation of his family for decades. The family members were just happy for Lin Feng and did not mention asking him to come back to take over. After all, the child was quite fruitful outside. They just felt that if Lin Feng failed in the future, the family would still have a family business for him to inherit. Lin Feng also felt somewhat guilty about this. After all, their real child was gone, and now standing in front of them was a soul from another universe. At this time, Lin Feng couldn't help but think of his family, wondering how they were doing in another universe. Maybe I still have the possibility to go back. For example, reaching the multiverse level, or drawing some powerful props. Lin Feng said to himself secretly in his heart. In fact, Tony Stark and Nick Fury's psychological profile of Lin Feng was not wrong at all, because Lin Feng did not have much sense of belonging to this United States, even to this Earth, and to this universe. After all, the most important stage of his life's value formation was in another universe, and his real parents, relatives, and friends were also in another universe, so no matter what, it was impossible for him to have much sense of belonging to this universe. He still had some expectations in his heart that he would be able to return to his own universe one day in the future. As long as he persisted and wrote a diary day and night, everything was possible. After feeling sad, Lin Feng walked on the streets of New York at night. It must be said that the streets of New York are not a good place at night. After leaving the high-end community at home, they arrived at a poor community. There were more homeless people nearby, and Lin Feng saw a robbery happen. There were even a few black people who saw Lin Feng's Asian face and thought that he should be an Asian who was easy to bully. They wanted to rob him on the spot, but they were no match for Lin Feng. Lin Feng just twisted these people's hands as usual. The right hands of these black criminals were completely destroyed, and the bones were broken. It was impossible to recover in the future. he also stepped on one of their legs, which directly abolished their possibility of committing crimes again in the future. Lin Feng has always been ruthless in dealing with these criminals. He would not be polite at all. But before he could think more, a bank ATM robbery happened in the distance. A group of black people took C4 bombs and blew up the ATM machine directly. When they were about to take the money away, a figure wearing medieval armor fell from the sky, knocked them all down in a few seconds, and then tied them together, waiting for the arrival of the police. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. Wonder Woman. Chapter 34. First meeting with Doctor Strange. This Wonder Woman is about 70% similar to Gal Gadot in her previous life, but she is younger and has a better figure. Even wearing armor can't hide her hot body. Before Lin Feng could react, Wonder Woman, who had dealt with all this, directly swung the lasso of truth and grabbed the clouds in the sky and flew away. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng also felt his mouth slightly grinned. Although he had seen this scene in the movie before and knew that Wonder Woman seemed to have this kind of flying method, and as her strength continued to improve in the future, she seemed to be able to fly directly, but this still felt ridiculous. Is this in line with scientific principles? Obviously not. But the problem is that this is a world that does not follow scientific principles. Even he himself is not a product of science. This. Suddenly, a slightly frightened voice came from his side. Lin Feng only felt a little familiar. He turned his head and saw that it was a young man with a horse face and curly hair. He was wearing a flashy red suit and looked like he had just come out of a party. He looked at the figure of Wonder Woman disappearing quickly in the sky with an incredible look on his face, as if he had seen a ghost. Benedict Cumberbatch. Lin Feng almost blurted out, but the next second, he immediately reacted. In this Marvel world, it couldn't be Cumberbatch. There was only one possibility. This was the future Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange. Seeing that it was Doctor Strange, Lin Feng's first reaction was to stay away from him, because Doctor Strange Stephen Strange at this time was related to a super boss, who was also one of the few father-level bosses in the first stage of Marvel, the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One. Doctor Strange was the key to whether Ancient One could retire safely in the future, so she had been paying attention to Doctor Strange's affairs. At present, Lin Feng didn't want to enter Ancient One's eyes. Although Ancient One did not have such outrageous abilities as TVA, there was no doubt that in the current stage of Marvel, she was undoubtedly a big boss among big bosses. She had killed so many dimensional demons that she didn't know how many. Even the universe overlord Thanos wanted to attack the Earth, but he didn't dare to do it directly, one of which was because he was afraid of Ancient One. Ancient One's melee ability is average, but her magic attainments are what Lin Feng is very afraid of. Even if he is as strong as Bruce Banner, the Green Doctor, his majestic body and powerful strength are still beaten out of his body by Ancient One. If Stephen Strange cannot become Doctor Strange because of him, it is entirely conceivable that Ancient One will come to trouble him. After all, she can use the time stone to observe the future. She can tell the direction of the future with just one look. Wouldn't it be easy for her to trouble him at that time? And in his heart, Lin Feng doesn't want to interrupt Stephen Strange's path to becoming Doctor Strange, because he also needs Doctor Strange to deal with the legendary Dark Lord Dormammu. As the most difficult one among the several father-level beings that will appear in the first phase of Marvel, Lin Feng can't think of any good way to deal with him. Other Ancient Ones, or Odin, or the extremely powerful Thanos at least have physical existence. But this Dormammu is different. He is completely integrated with the Dark Dimension. Basically, it can be said that, as long as the Dark Dimension is not destroyed, he will always exist. How to fight against such an existence? It is impossible to fight at all. Only the magic side of the Ancient One can fight with magic, and he has to use 3 temples to form a formation to prevent Dormammu from coming. It can be said that among the many dimensional demons, the Ancient One is well known for his strength, and there are not a few dimensional demons killed by him. But there are not many dimensional demons that she can do nothing about, and one of them is Dormammu. Even the reason why the Ancient One has maintained his life for so many years is because he has absorbed the energy of the Dark Dimension to keep his body from decaying. Otherwise, how can normal humans live for hundreds or thousands of years? In this regard, many people with mental cleanliness may not accept it, but that does not include Lin Feng. For him, power has no distinction between good and evil. The key is how to use it. It is not an unforgivable thing for the Ancient One to absorb the energy of the dark dimension. Although she always said that she couldn't withstand the invasion of darkness, looking at her later appearance, it didn't seem like she couldn't suppress the dark power in her body. Not to mention, there are big guys like Vishanti behind the Ancient One. In short, rather than saying that the Ancient One couldn't withstand the invasion of the dark power and had to end his life, it's better to say that he didn't want to continue to be the Supreme Sorcerer. In the comics, after handing over the position of the Supreme Sorcerer to Doctor Strange, the Ancient One ascended in spirit and traveled through the multiverse. The main character was a worker who was oppressed for hundreds of years and finally got off work and ran away completely. And Dormammu is such a tricky existence. In terms of single combat, I'm afraid that no one can do it except the Ancient One. Even Doctor Strange just used the characteristics of the Time Stone to force Dormammu to retreat. So Lin Feng didn't want to interrupt this process, nor did he want to change all this, which would change the historical result of Stephen Strange becoming Doctor Strange. At that time, the Earth might be swallowed by Dormammu directly. Such a timeline does exist. Of course, as an incorrect timeline, it will be cut off by TVA. At that time, Thanos snapped his fingers before he could even invade. When Stephen Strange looked at Wonder Woman's departing figure in shock, thinking that he had seen it wrong, he suddenly found that there was someone missing beside him. Was there someone next to him just now? Stephen Strange looked at the side. He vaguely remembered that there seemed to be a person standing next to him just now, but he disappeared quietly in just a short while. Did he really drink too much today? Impossible. His alcohol tolerance is not so low. Not far from him, the robbers were still tied to the ground, and there were several black people lying on the ground wailing in the distance. This place is not a place to stay for long. Stephen Strange left here quickly. The slum community was not a place he would go to on a daily basis. On weekdays, he would at most drive by from a distance. If he had not just attended the banquet and needed to sober up, he would not have come here at all, let alone see such an exciting scene. That's Wonder Woman. Not long after Stephen Strange left, he remembered the identity of the female warrior. Isn't she the Wonder Woman who has been very popular on the internet recently? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35. Too many complaints. I can't stop. While Doctor Strange was marveling at his experience, Lin Feng had already returned to his home, fully exerting his super speed to the extreme. Although it was not at the same level as the speed of the Flash, the speed of running completely exceeded the top sports cars, and his physical strength was endless, and he would not get tired at all. This was only the initial stage of the Homelander template. After the template was upgraded in the future, he believed that the running speed could easily exceed the speed of sound. Real super speed. When he returned home, the first thing he did was to take out his diary and start recording. Today, he met two important protagonists in succession. Now these have become a kind of habit. Recording every day will increase the progress of the energy slot in his mind, but there is also an upper limit, and it will not increase indefinitely, so even if Lin Feng is very anxious, he can only wait slowly, draw lots again and again, and enhance his strength. The mid-autumn moon is full. I just attended a family gathering. I don't know how my parents are doing now. Are they still immersed in the sadness of losing their son? Lin Feng sighed. He was not born in the Kiddian orphanage. He originally had a normal family in another universe. Today was the Mid-Autumn Festival. He was called back by his original parents to have a reunion dinner, which also aroused his homesickness. However, he still restrained his homesickness and continued to write. I never expected that I would meet two protagonists today. It was another day full of complaints. Although I had seen Wonder Woman use the lasso of truth to lasso lightning to fly, I still felt very angry when I saw Wonder Woman use the lasso of truth to lasso the clouds in the sky and then use this method to fly away from the scene. Although I know that there are many unscientific places in this world, this is too unscientific. By the way, none of these second generation gods can fly properly. Diana, as the demigod daughter of Zeus, can't fly, which is also outrageous. But think about Thor, as the son of Odin, who can't fly either, and can only fly with Thor's hammer. It seems reasonable. But speaking of it, Zeus also exists in the Marvel universe. How should this be related to Diana? Will they be considered as real siblings with Hercules, the god of war, who will appear in the future? Funny. There are too many slots, and it is impossible to stop. Lin Feng updated his diary, which undoubtedly immediately alarmed the holders of the diary copies. In Tony Stark's mansion, many young models and stars were happy by the swimming pool, while Tony Stark was dancing in his steel armor, the focus of the whole audience. Below, a black officer stared at Tony Stark with dissatisfaction. Sir, Lin Feng's diary has been updated. Suddenly, at this moment, Jarvis's reminder came from Tony Stark's headphones. Tony Stark was shocked and quickly woke up. This was a habit he had developed over the years. No matter how happy he was, he would wake up immediately once he entered the time to do serious work. Hey, everyone, you guys have fun first, I'll leave for a while. Tony Stark said, and left the swimming pool directly. The young models and female stars were quite disappointed, but soon they started playing on their own. Hey, Tony, listen to me. The black officer caught up with Tony Stark and said, Rhodes. Tony Stark had to stop, because this person was his good friend and the most staunch supporter in the military, James Rhodes. That is the famous war machine later. No matter what, I can't hand over the technology of the armor. You know, no one can force me to do something I don't want to do. Tony Stark knew what his friend was going to say and refused directly. I know, but patriotism is the obligation of every American citizen. Tony, you are also a citizen of the United States. Colonel Rhodes said. He was also in a difficult situation, but now the pressure from the top is very great. Since Tony Stark revealed that he had the technology of the iron armor, there are countless people who want to seize his technology. If Tony Stark himself was not a top tycoon and had a very strong relationship with the upper class in the United States, I'm afraid that someone would have made him commit suicide with dozens of bullets in his back. Ha, don't say that to me, James. Just like I said before, this is just a mechanical prosthesis, not a weapon. And what weapons does our army lack? We are already the most powerful country on the planet, with the most powerful army on the planet. What do you need my armor for? To kill innocent people more efficiently? Tony Stark said sarcastically without hesitation. He originally thought that the weapons he made were to protect the country, but later he found out that these weapons can also be used to suppress innocent people. Especially when he personally flew to Afghanistan some time ago to eliminate the warlord who had kidnapped him. He saw the situation in Afghanistan and made up his mind not to help the evil. And as he said, the United States has the most powerful army on the planet. Who dares to attack it? Self-protection is more than enough. But Tony, some things are not something you can decide whether you want to or not. You can escape for a while, but you can't escape for a lifetime. You are not invincible. Colonel Rhodes warned his friend with a serious face. Tony Stark sighed and then said cynically, then let's escape for a while. I don't want to discuss this issue with you anymore. This issue ends here, okay? In the original timeline, Tony Stark was about to die because of palladium poisoning, so he entrusted one of the Mark armors to his friend, which was also a disguised surrender. But now he is in good health and has no palladium poisoning, but he has no such idea. After saying that, Tony Stark directly left his friend James Rhodes and called two young models to hold him. He went down to the basement, mechanically took off the steel armor on the operating table in the basement, and picked up the diary and started reading. The first thing that caught his eye was Lin Feng's words about missing his hometown and his parents. He sighed in his heart. Lin Feng still had a thought of home, and he could also think about returning to his universe, returning to his home, and seeing his parents again one day in the future. But what about me? There will never be that chance again. There will never be a chance to say to my parents, your son has grown up. Chapter 36 Wonder Woman is actually the second generation of the God King. No matter how prominent his current status is, no matter how many achievements he has made, his parents are still the softest part of his heart, and the eternal regret in his heart. There will never be a chance to make up for it. Lin Feng, who came from another universe, still has a glimmer of hope to see his family, but he will never have this chance again. But think about it, considering his father's old-fashioned impression, he will probably be furious when he sees his cynical appearance. The relationship between the father and son was not very good to begin with, and it is likely to collapse in an instant. Although he has heard that his father seemed to be a playboy when he was young, it was just a rumor. In his impression, his father was serious, stubborn, and old-fashioned, and he became like this just to resist his father. His father is serious, stubborn, and old-fashioned, so he is playful and cynical. This is a silent confrontation. But over time, even if it was really just to fight his father at the beginning, it has now become the background of his character. He has the most wealth in the world, but he can't buy what he wants. Without time to sigh, Tony Stark said directly, "Jarvis, contact Nick Fury and others, open the conference mode." "Okay, sir, the contact has been completed," Jarvis said. A moment later, in front of him, a figure was projected in, but it was none other than Nick Fury. Then, Black Widow, Natasha, Hawkeye, Barton, Hill, Coulson and others joined in one after another. This is a multi-person remote chat system developed by Tony Stark. With the help of external equipment, people can be projected into the conference room. Recently, his cooperation with S.H.I.E.L.D. has gradually increased, especially the fact that both of them have diaries, which makes both parties stand on the same front. The two sides have cooperated several times and even have some technical exchanges. In order to ensure that the diary updates can be seen in the first time, Tony Stark developed this system, because these people are not ordinary people, and it is impossible for them to keep an eye on the diary updates every day, especially as action-oriented agents. Black Widow and Hawkeye often have missions to go out, and it is even more impossible for them to often sit in the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. With this device, even if they are in different places, they can use the satellite of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Tony Stark's private communication satellite to hold a meeting online in time. Well, the rich are so generous. Private, exclusive, not company owned, satellite. "Natasha, how did you get hurt?" Hill saw that there were blue and red spots on Natasha's face, and asked directly, "Hey, didn't I just clean up a terrorist's nest and got a little injured?" Natasha said directly without caring, "That's not just a little bit. If it weren't for me, she would have almost died." Hawkeye, Barton said at the right time. "Barton, sometimes, keeping your mouth shut is also a virtue." Natasha, the black woman, said back without hesitation. Although the two were arguing with each other, everyone could see their deep friendship. "Okay, stop making trouble, hurry up. It seems that there will be something incredible today." Nick Fury interrupted the two people's argument at the right time. Everyone's thoughts quickly returned to the original content and they checked the contents of the diary. They skillfully skipped the first entry and read the second one. The amount of information was enormous. Two protagonists, what do you mean? Tony Stark touched his chin and looked at the description in Lin Feng's diary. If he remembered correctly, Lin Feng had once said in his diary that he was also a protagonist. In addition, the previous Spider-Man was also a protagonist. Could it be that this protagonist was similar to those who could stir up the wind and clouds in history? But he instinctively felt that the protagonist that Lin Feng was talking about must not be like this. The lasso of truth is used to trap lightning and fly in the clouds. Tony Stark felt that his brain was about to explode. Is this thing really scientific? He could hardly imagine what kind of flying method this was. But he soon found out, because Jarvis found the surveillance video of the area where the incident occurred today through the internet. Although the shooting angle was limited, and they could only vaguely see some of it, they still saw the bizarre flying method that Lin Feng said, which was to rely on the golden rope to tie up the shapeless cloud, and then use the cloud as a leverage point, and actually jumped up and flew out. Although he knew that existence like Wonder Woman obviously could not be understood by science. But even if it was magic, it was too outrageous. Others also had the same expression. It was neither scientific nor magical. So that rope is called the lasso of truth? Natasha, the Black Widow, said in amazement. From the name, one can tell a lot. It seems to be something that can make people tell the truth. People who were caught by Wonder Woman before would automatically tell all the crimes they committed. I thought it was some kind of magic that made people tell the truth, but now it seems that it is not magic, but the function of this lasso of truth. Nick Fury touched his chin and suddenly reacted. There are a lot of materials about Wonder Woman's research in S.H.I.E.L.D., among which it is emphasized that prisoners caught by Wonder Woman often confess many details of their crimes, even cases that they had not been caught before. What's more, some even confessed the things they did when they were young and peeped at girls taking a bath. In this regard, analysts from S.H.I.E.L.D. believe that it should be some kind of magic that makes people tell the truth. But now the truth is out. It is this truth lasso, after being lassoed, will continue to tell the truth. But the key point is this sentence, the second generation of God. It turns out that Wonder Woman is the second generation of God, and the second generation of the God King, the daughter of Zeus. Hawkeye Barton looked at the records in the diary in shock. Did we poke the nest of the gods? First there was Thor, the god of thunder, and now there is Wonder Woman. But I remember that Zeus doesn't have this daughter, right? Look carefully, Lin Feng is talking about demigods, which means that her mother is just an ordinary mortal. How many demigod children Zeus has, God knows. Black Widow Natasha complained. Zeus is indeed a very famous stallion. From people, to gods, to various creatures, from women to men, from strangers to sisters, and even grandmothers, there is almost nothing he can't get, and there is nothing he can't put down. More than half of the entire Greek mythology is Zeus's various love stories. This would have been nothing, but one day, the myth became reality. Chapter 37. Everyone's 3 views collapse. Because Zeus had so many children, everyone could count how many gods he had, but it was impossible to count how many demigods he had. This was also a mess in the Greek mythology of all the gods, including Zeus' 2 brothers, who gave birth to gods, demigods, and all kinds of demons and monsters. So although everyone was shocked by the identity of Wonder Woman, they soon accepted this setting. Thor is the son of Odin, which everyone knows, but they don't know that he can't fly either. He has to rely on Thor's hammer to fly. This is undoubtedly beyond everyone's cognition. So, Jarvis, can all the gods in the East fly? Tony Stark thought about it. It seems that in the Western mythology system, not everyone can fly. It seems that some people need to rely on some special equipment to fly. However, since all kinds of myths have been completely replaced by Christian myths, it seems that no one has considered this issue. After all, in Christian mythology, angels have wings and can fly naturally. Yes, sir. From the Eastern mythology, it seems that they can all fly on the clouds. Jarvis searched the Eastern mythology, completed the analysis, and said, then he has the nerve to say that it is unscientific and unreasonable for Wonder Woman to use the lasso of truth to catch the clouds and fly away. Their Eastern gods and people standing on the clouds are not scientific at all. Tony Stark couldn't help but spit out a venomous tongue. But she is the daughter of Zeus in another universe, that is, the so-called DC universe, not the daughter of Zeus in our universe, so there should be some differences, but later not only Thor will appear, but also Hercules will appear. Tony Stark said with a ridiculous expression on his face. This is not only outrageous, it is simply outrageous. First it was Thor, then this demigod Wonder Woman, and in the future there will be Hercules, which is a bit incredible, no matter how you look at it. Since getting Lin Feng's diary, he found that his cognition and world outlook were in a process of subversion, and subversion again. However, he also had the same question as Lin Feng. Since this Wonder Woman Diana came from another universe, how should he and Zeus of this universe be considered? Can they still be considered father and daughter? The outrageous flying methods of the second generation of gods. Then a video appeared. Everyone quickly clicked it to see that the first thing that came into view was Thor, the god of thunder. However, he was wearing a medieval battle armor and a cloak, which was completely different from the ordinary people in t-shirts and jeans seen in the previous video. He swung the Thor's hammer in his hand, and then flew out with a Thor's hammer, and he also flew out instantly. Tony Stark saw this scene, and suddenly felt his eyelids twitching. He suddenly felt that Lin Feng's complaints made some sense. It was indeed a bit outrageous for Thor to fly like this. It was not decent. If it was an ancient person, seeing someone who could fly, he would have to kneel down and crawl at the other person's feet. But modern earthlings have already created flying vehicles, and this ability is no longer so rare. It seems that Thor in that timeline really lost his power for some reason. This is what he should be like. Nick Fury said. Didn't Lin Feng's diary mention that Thor was thrown down from the Nordic palace by his father and was exiled? He was supposed to be exiled to realize his sublimation and finally find himself. So maybe his power was taken back before that. Nick Fury's analysis made everyone nod. This could explain why Thor was shot to death by Hawkeye Barton, but after a blood test in his body, it was found that he had lived for at least 1,000 years, which was not the case for ordinary people. Tony Stark was thinking more at this time. If this was true, wouldn't it mean that these beings called gods were actually no different from them in essence, but because they had the so-called power, they had powerful strength? And this power could actually be taken away. If he developed an anti-Thor armor in the future, could he get inspiration from this aspect? Is there a way to cut off the power of these gods? For a moment, many thoughts flashed through Tony Stark's mind. Then, the scene changed, and a chaotic scene appeared. Wonder Woman walked faster and faster with a sad expression. She finally cried out, "I give up my wish." As she spoke, she began to run. Everyone saw that the wound below her left collarbone gradually healed. She roared, and then she actually flew directly off the ground. After an angry roar, she threw out the lasso of truth, and the whole person flew into the sky with the lasso of truth. Everyone saw that in midair, she used the lasso of truth to lasso the plane again, and instantly pulled it up again. Then she seemed to have opened up some ability, and learned to fly. It's very simple. Just use the wind and air. Learn to control it and grab it. Accompanied by a male voice narration, Wonder Woman finally learned to float in the air completely, and then she swung the lasso of truth in her hand, and flew with the force. Even the next outrageous scene happened. She actually learned to fly completely. She posed in the classic Superman pose, and flew through the clouds. And the scene finally ended here. Although everyone had seen the diary a long time ago, and had seen the surveillance video of Wonder Woman flying with the lasso of truth more than once before, it was still outrageous to see such a clear, close-up flying scene. Especially at this time, everyone was considered a scientific figure. Even people like Natasha, who had been transformed, had accepted scientific transformation, and believed in science in their bones. And now Wonder Woman, just relying on a narration, learned to control it, catch it, and then fly with the help of wind and air? Is it so outrageous? And the lasso of truth can actually fly with it. This scene basically smashed the science they knew to the ground, smashed it to pieces, and then stepped on it hard. Okay, I have to admit that maybe we need to change our perspective on the world. It would be naive to talk about science when it comes to these gods, or the second generation of gods. Tony Stark said helplessly. Chapter 38. The Earth's water is deep. Everyone nodded seriously. The world now seemed to be completely different from what they had initially known. Even the people in S.H.I.E.L.D., who claimed to know a lot about the other world, now felt that they were no different from ordinary people. The so-called king of the other world, the uncrowned king of the underground world, was only on the surface. The real deep water area was beyond their reach. Fighting vampires and dealing with werewolves on weekdays. Does that mean you know the truth of the world? Naive. But just when everyone thought that today's diary would end after the video as usual, unexpectedly, new content resurfaced. Wonder Woman is still very beautiful, especially when she was young, but she almost scared Stephen Strange to death before he became Doctor Strange. It must be said that New York began small, and you can accidentally run into Doctor Strange himself. It is estimated that the scene he saw could make him doubt his life, and his 3 views would be blown up. However, it is better to stay away from him. After all, he is the successor chosen by the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One, which is related to Ancient One's future retirement plan. This is one of the few father-level bosses who appeared in the first phase of Marvel. If he is really targeted by her, he will be really finished. Let Doctor Strange stay quiet for a few more years. When the Dark Lord Dormammu comes in the future, he will still be expected to stop him. At that time, Ancient One doesn't know whether he is really dead. Except for him, there is really no one on the magic side of the earth who can stop Dormammu. That is to cry to the sky and the earth, but no one will respond. It is much more terrible than the snap of the purple potato spirit of Thanos. I still have a 50% chance of surviving Thanos' snap. If the earth is swallowed by Dormammu, it will be a 100% death. Another piece of information with a very explosive amount of information. Everyone has just accepted the setting that Wonder Woman is the second generation of God, and now suddenly there is such a Doctor Strange. Stephen Strange? This Doctor Strange. What a strange nickname. Tony Stark couldn't help but follow up with a venomous tongue and said, "It contains a lot of information." Hilton paused, then said, "Who is this ancient one? The Sorcerer Supreme? What a domineering nickname. The Magician." Everyone also had countless questions in their hearts. Especially Nick Fury felt that how could it be another existence that he had never heard of? The Sorcerer Supreme. This sound would not be a small figure. If someone else said it, Nick Fury might still feel that it was a bit of self-promotion, but if it was said by Lin Feng, it would be another matter. The credibility has greatly increased. And Stephen Strange, who will also have the nickname of Doctor Strange in the future, is actually the successor chosen by this person, which means that he may also become a very powerful magician in the future. Dark Dimension Lord Dormammu. This nickname is really powerful. Hawkeye Barton couldn't help but said in amazement. In comparison, what is his nickname? Hawkeye. It's really weak. Tony Stark's face was extremely solemn. From Lin Feng's words, it meant that the coming of the Dark Dimensional Lord Dormammu in the future would not be what they imagined, to invade and occupy the earth. Instead, he would swallow the earth in one bite. The earth is such a huge celestial body. If it can swallow the earth in one bite, it can be seen that the size of this Dark Dimensional Lord is probably unimaginably large. From the scientific side, there is no means to fight against it. Even if there are nuclear bombs, it is useless. Although nuclear bombs give people a feeling that they can destroy the world, if you understand it in depth, you will know that even if all the nuclear bombs in the hands of the several member states on the earth explode, they can only destroy human beings themselves. Want to destroy the earth? That is impossible. It is difficult to even scratch the earth. Facing such a behemoth, their weapons on the technological side are completely useless, and they can only wait to die. So, according to Lin Feng's meaning, facing this Dark Dimensional Lord Dormammu, is there a way to deal with it? Can those magicians on the magic side deal with it? Black Widow Natasha said in shock. She couldn't imagine how powerful those wizards could be. It seems that's what he meant. Then we must not disturb Doctor Strange. Otherwise, if he can't become Doctor Strange, the Earth may not be able to survive the crisis of the Dark Dimension Lord Dormammu, and will also provoke the Supreme Sorcerer, Nick Fury said. Still monitor from a distance, but don't disturb him. Just raise his level to the same level as Lin Feng. Everyone nodded. It was safer this way. Lin Feng's diary was so terrifying. He swallowed the earth in one gulp and invaded the dark dimension. Everyone was a little scared. After thinking about it, it seemed that the best way was Lin Feng's way. Don't disturb Doctor Strange's growth, and let him take on the task of blocking the Dark Dimension Lord Dormammu in the future. And this Thanos, the purple potato spirit mentioned in Lin Feng's diary last time, was it called Thanos? Has anyone heard of it? Carlson asked. Everyone shook their heads. This name was too unfamiliar to them. Lin Feng mentioned Thanos' snap again and again. I think it is also a kind of magic, or some other means. As long as you snap your fingers, there is a 50% chance that you will die directly. Hawkeye Barton thought about it and said. Suddenly, his hair stood on end. The implication of Lin Feng's words was that he ignored the defense and died directly. It was probably some kind of big move. And what is a so-called father level? It seems to be a certain level, but is this father level very powerful? How powerful is it? Tony Stark has been evaluating the chance of winning if he wants to attack the so-called father level. Lin Feng means that there are already several such beings at this stage. One of them is the so-called Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One. According to the description, he seems to be in the justice and lawful camp, not a big villain. The more people analyzed, and the more they knew, the heavier their mood became. not to mention Doctor Strange. There are 3 big guys in this paragraph alone: the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One, the Purple Potato Elf Thanos, and the Dark Dimension Lord Dormammu. Lin Feng's fear of these 3 people was almost beyond words, and he couldn't even fight against them. And everyone who had been monitoring Lin Feng in various ways knew very well what kind of strength Lin Feng had. Chapter 39. Dark Strangeness Destroys the Universe. Everyone is shocked. Every time Lin Feng did something chivalrous, someone from S.H.I.E.L.D. would follow up and judge his strength. It can be said that recently, his strength has been clearly improved. He is no longer a human being. Whether it is speed, strength, endurance, or other physical qualities, they are all abnormal. Now Nick Fury does not compare him with Captain America Steve Rogers in the data records, but starts to compare him with the Hulk. It is conceivable that Lin Feng's current strength level in their minds, especially for the masters in this world, the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. thought for a long time, maybe only the Hulk, whose strength seems to have no upper limit, can compete with him. Other vampires and werewolves will probably be blown up by him. They don't know that Lin Feng only fused 50% of the Homelander template at the beginning. As time goes by, he fused more and more Homelander templates, and his strength increased rapidly, going further and further on the road of not being a human being. Tony Stark even used a supercomputer to simulate what level of weapons would be possible if he wanted to attack Lin Feng privately. There was almost no way out. Conventional light weapons could not even break Lin Feng's defense in the simulation. Other heavy weapons could not even break Lin Feng's defense. It was difficult to catch up with Lin Feng. According to the calculation results, as long as he was not hit directly, even if he was just a few meters away from the bombing, the splash damage was not enough to kill Lin Feng. The highest level of simulation was to use tactical nuclear weapons, but the final result was also a failure, because it was impossible to completely lock Lin Feng. Lin Feng not only had super strength, super endurance, but also super speed. It was very difficult to lock him. He even had a kind of intuition called a warrior, which was comprehended from the national martial arts system he practiced, and could sense the crisis in advance. If someone wanted to deal with him, he would be able to sense it in advance. Although he could not know what would happen directly, he would have a strong feeling to remind him to leave the place. All these combined made Lin Feng not only invincible in combat power, but also extremely difficult to besiege. Even if an entire heavy armor division was used to besiege him, he would still be killed. This was the result simulated by the supercomputer, based on Lin Feng's personal physical fitness input by Tony Stark. In short, he is a super pervert. This analysis result was also shared by Tony Stark with the S.H.I.E.L.D. Although Tony Stark has not yet joined the Avengers, the cooperation between the two sides has already begun in full swing. However, even though Lin Feng is like a monster in their eyes, he is already extremely afraid of the Ancient One, Thanos, and Dormammu. He doesn't even dare to walk into the sight of the Ancient One and wants to hide far away. From this comparison, although they still don't know how terrifying these people are, they can guess that this so-called father level is much more terrifying than they imagined. Everyone looked at this scene and their mood suddenly became bad. Jarvis, create 3 new files, namely the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One, Thanos, and the Dark Dimension Lord Dormammu, and search all the information about these names on the internet to see if there are any related records. Tony Stark said immediately. He felt that if these people were mixed in the crowd, they might leave some clues, such as the myths and legends about Asgard, left by the Nordic palace in the human world. Okay sir, the archive has been established, and the search has begun. Do you need me to set up a task module to search continuously? Jarvis asked. Although Jarvis's computing power is very strong, the amount of information in the internet in this world is too huge. Even if there is a supercomputer behind it for searching, it will take a long time to search continuously. It needs a long-term, no, permanent search. All relevant information, sort it out, and send me a copy every day, if there is relevant information. Tony Stark said immediately. Okay sir. Jarvis replied. Tony, if there is any, send me a copy. Nick Fury also heard it, and immediately asked to share it. Yes. Tony Stark nodded, and did not refuse. However, all these combined are not as dangerous as Doctor Strange himself. He has destroyed many universes. Don't let him turn evil. It's better to have a normal Doctor Strange. An abnormal Doctor Strange's brain is not normal. None of these superheroes are not strong-willed and have deep obsessions. If they go the wrong way, they will often become supervillains that are more terrible than ordinary supercriminals. In order to revive his lover, Dark Doctor Strange killed his own universe and wants to destroy other universes. He is already crazy. So it's better not to make mistakes in Ancient One's arrangement. In a few years, he will have a car accident or become disabled. If he goes astray, things will be serious. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but gasp. Just now, everyone said that they would place their hopes on Stephen Strange. The next moment, Lin Feng said that he would turn evil, and after turning evil, he would actually kill his own universe. So, I want to ask, what is the concept of the so-called collapse of the universe? To what extent is it considered a collapse of the universe? Hawkeye Barton said a little unbelievably. The limit of his imagination is probably to use super high technology, such as star destroyers, to destroy the entire planet. That would be an unimaginable force and an unimaginable level of technology. But to destroy a universe? How to do it? Can humans really do this? Everyone looked at each other because they couldn't imagine what it meant to destroy their own universe or destroy other people's universes. It's not that they don't have imagination, but their current understanding of scientific power is simply incomprehensible. Even Tony Stark, who has the highest scientific literacy, can't imagine what power the scientific side has that can destroy the entire universe. Even if it exists in science fiction, or even in science fiction, it is a very sci-fi concept, such as physical weapons, philosophical weapons, mathematical weapons, etc. It is hard to imagine that these things can destroy the entire universe. The universe is too vast, and what humans can know is only a small part of the universe. It is impossible to observe it, let alone destroy it. Chapter 40 Is our timeline the correct one? Everyone almost instinctively gasped. Science obviously can't do it. Even destroying a planet may take thousands or tens of thousands of years. To destroy the universe? Maybe humans won't have this ability until they die. It's conceivable that the ability of the magic side is so terrifying. The upper limit is a bit outrageous. And this Doctor Strange is the successor chosen by the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One, so it is very likely that Ancient One also has similar abilities. At this time, they seemed to understand, while Lin Feng was so afraid of this Ancient One. If you look at it from this perspective, it seems reasonable that the Dark Dimensional Lord Dormammu can swallow the earth in one bite. I just don't know where the strength of that Thanos is. No wonder Lin Feng didn't dare to interfere with Stephen Strange's path to becoming Doctor Strange. It turns out that, if he can't become Doctor Strange, then he will turn black into the so-called Dark Strange, and he will change from a superhero to a supervillain, and even destroy the universe. Nick Fury said with a breath of cold air. With his original character, facing such an unstable character, who may turn evil at any time, and become a huge threat at any time, he usually controls it if he can, and kills it directly, if he can't control it. But he really has no way to deal with Doctor Strange. Not to mention that the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One standing behind him is not someone they can deal with. In the future, after the Ancient One dies, he will have to deal with the terrifying Dark Dimensional Lord Dormammu. Not to mention, if he becomes Doctor Strange according to the plan, that's fine. If the plan goes wrong, and he becomes the so-called Dark Doctor Strange, the entire universe may be killed by him. This person is really too tricky. No wonder Lin Feng can only stay away from him. We still have to be careful about his problems. Tony Stark said. He may be the most difficult person we deal with. Everyone nodded. No matter how strong the others are, none of them can be so involved. It's not right for them to intervene, and it's not right not to intervene. Moreover, we previously speculated that the concept of timeline mentioned in Lin Feng's diary, our understanding is about countless possibilities of the future, but now it seems that it is not just a possibility, but it is possible that such a universe really exists. Different timelines correspond to different universes. Tony Stark said. What do you want to say? Nick Fury asked with some confusion. Tony Stark paused, then said, "What I want to say is that Lin Feng's diary once mentioned that there may be many so-called wrong timelines that will be dealt with by people, and are we in the so-called wrong timeline now? For example, this Stephen Strange will become Doctor Strange to protect the Earth. If this is the correct timeline, then the wrong timeline should be that he made a mistake in this process and became the Dark Doctor Strange. Then can we be sure that we are not on this wrong timeline now? Can we be sure that our future is not pointing to this wrong future? There are even many such wrong futures, so what should we do?" Everyone heard this and fell silent. There is no doubt that this has exceeded the scope of what they can handle. After a moment, Nick Fury could only speak, to use a saying from Lin Feng's hometown, "Do your best and leave the rest to fate. We have no choice but to strive for the so-called correct timeline." Why do I feel that, since Lin Feng's diary appeared, the problems we have to deal with have instantly changed from ordinary difficulty to hell level? I used to go on missions to deal with vampires, werewolves, or some terrorists at most. Now, it's good. Either I shoot a god to death, or I have to save the Earth, save the universe, and even save the timeline. It's like playing a game. After leaving the novice village, the ultimate boss is waiting for me. This feeling is really terrible. Hawkeye Barton couldn't help but complain. Everyone nodded in agreement. Look at what crisis this is. The simplest one is the invasion of aliens, and then there is the crisis that the Earth will be swallowed up in one bite, and there is also the crisis that the timeline and the entire universe will collapse. Suddenly, I feel so powerless. After they complained for a few words, Lin Feng's diary suddenly updated a video. Doctor Strange's debut was the peak, and then what a rotten fish and shrimp performance. Everyone's eyes lit up. Tony Stark quickly clicked on the video in the diary, and then projected it, and everyone began to watch it. The first thing that came into view was Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange and Baron Mordo, who were dressed in wizard costumes. However, at this time, the two were very embarrassed. Everyone could see that they must have just experienced a big battle. At this time, not far from Tony Stark in the basement of the mansion, there was another projection. It was the information about Stephen Strange that Jarvis had just found on the internet. In it, Stephen Strange was very showy and wore various high-end custom-made suits. Each one looked very expensive. It might even be more expensive than what Tony Stark was wearing, because Tony Stark looked like a typical American upstart rich man, and he didn't pay much attention to clothing. Just at first glance, Tony Stark felt uncomfortable. There was nothing else, just a pretentious criminal who met another pretentious criminal who was even more pretentious. He really met his match. Although Stephen Strange is just a surgeon and has less wealth than him, he is no less pretentious than him. This is a sign of dislike between pretenders. The wizard dressed Stephen Strange in the diary video has a sense of fading glitz and vicissitudes. Without the extremely flashy suits, he is finally not so annoying. In the picture, there are ruins everywhere. It looks like a city, but no one knows where it is. However, it is completely imaginable how intense it is. In the teleportation array, Doctor Strange Stephen Strange walked out with a rather depressed look. What he had just experienced was undoubtedly a huge shock to him. "She's dead." At this time, Doctor Strange Stephen Strange said, "You're right, she's not what I thought she was." Baron Mordo said sadly. He only realized at this time that what Doctor Strange had said to him before was true. Something is wrong with the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One. Silently asking for recommendation votes. Chapter 41 The reason why Dormammu cannot descend directly. She is actually very contradictory, Doctor Strange said, and he was also not feeling well. He somewhat understood Ancient One, but he knew that this was not right. The dark space is full of dangers. After hearing this, Baron Mordo said mercilessly, "What if she was swallowed? She told us not to do that, but she drew energy from it and maintained her life for hundreds of years." This conversation contained a lot of information, and everyone listened carefully. Dark space? Is it the dark dimension that Lin Feng mentioned before? Someone draws energy from the dark space and can even maintain a lifespan of hundreds of years. There is no doubt that, if this news spreads to the world, it will drive countless dignitaries crazy. They try their best just to live forever, but there is no other way. so they can only choose technology to prolong their lives. Even Nick Fury knew more. He knew that in human society there was a group of guys called the Hagi tribe. These people were in high positions and were respected and powerful bigwigs in human society. However, they were willing to work for vampires in order to be embraced by these vampires in the future and become vampires themselves. Although they became bloodthirsty and could not move during the day, their lifespans were greatly enhanced. They did not think it was a curse, but a gift. These people mixed in human society and provided vampires with great convenience in movement. This was also one of the most difficult things he had to deal with in dealing with vampires for so many years. In order to live forever, these Hagi tribes even gave up their dignity as human beings. If they knew that there was a way to live forever, even in the so-called dark space full of dangers, they would definitely rush up without hesitation. So who was the she mentioned by these two people? Was she the supreme sorcerer ancient one? Everyone had some doubts in their hearts. But it was obvious that, although energy could be drawn from the dark space, there would definitely be some very serious consequences, so the two of them were so repulsive to it. Facing Baron Mordo's questioning, Doctor Stephen Strange could only defend himself by saying, she did what she thought was right. Sooner or later, she will pay the price. Don't you realize that it is because of her illegal behavior that Dormammu has brought countless fanatical supporters, and Caecilius is a big mistake she made. Not only that, but we have also become her pawns in the end. Baron Mordo said in great grief and indignation. In his opinion, this is a kind of betrayal that he has encountered. He can't understand what the Ancient One did at all. This is a betrayal of his own beliefs. And all these crises are caused by the Ancient One's violation of his beliefs and the oath of the wizard. The world is in danger. Baron Mordo said viciously. All of this was brought by the Ancient One. The temple has been destroyed, and the New York temple has been attacked twice. Doctor Strange said. You know their next target. Baron Mordo was still being hypocritical about the so-called Ancient One absorbing energy in the dark space, but for Doctor Stephen Strange, the real important thing was to deal with the current doomsday situation. Although he was older, he was more like a flower in a greenhouse that had not experienced the wind and waves. He was too obsessed with the so-called darkness, light, justice, and evil. It's Hong Kong. Baron Mordo quickly told the location of the last temple. After all, although he hated the hypocrisy of the Ancient One, he also knew what was important and urgent. You once told me that fighting was like life was at stake. One day, it will be so. Today is the case. I alone can't defeat him. Doctor Strange looked at Baron Mordo with some expectation. Baron Mordo nodded and agreed, and Doctor Strange directly opened the portal. The two of them went directly through the portal and came to Hong Kong. Portal? Everyone found it incredible to see that the wizard had this ability. They didn't expect that this ability that only existed in magic novels actually existed. The scientific explanation is that the wizard can create a stable small wormhole at any time for crossing. It is almost impossible for science to achieve such a step. Magic is too magical. At this time, Hong Kong was full of ruins. The temple has collapsed. Doctor Strange said. The people outside the screen frowned as they watched this scene. There is no doubt that the performance of the two people here can be said to be superior. No wonder Stephen Strange will become Doctor Strange and the savior of the earth. There is indeed a gap in this pattern. And this picture, everyone also reacted. Is this the time when the dark dimensional Lord Dormammu invaded the earth mentioned in Lin Feng's diary? Otherwise, it can't be said that the world is in danger. In addition, the temple mentioned by the two people also attracted Nick Fury's attention. He silently recorded this term in his heart. Two temples have been destroyed, one in New York, and the other should be in Hong Kong. What about the remaining one? Dormammu's invasion. Why did he destroy the temple? There are simply 100,000 whys in his head, but none of them can be answered. Or is this temple related to where the Dormammu can come? These demons must be restrained by some kind of power. Otherwise, in Lin Feng's words, Dormammu can even swallow the earth in one gulp. What a terrible power that is. This temple is very likely to be the key to preventing Dormammu from coming. He made up his mind to find these so-called temples, not to destroy them, but to protect them. Since it is speculated that these temples are the key to preventing Dormammu from coming, then naturally he has to find a way to keep them. He has never placed his hope on Doctor Strange. If possible, he still hopes to protect the Earth himself. At this time, in the picture, there is endless darkness in the distance, flashing with all kinds of dark energy, and there are many lightnings transformed by dark energy, as if a terrifying dimension is about to come. Even across the screen, everyone can feel a dark, evil breath blowing in their faces, extremely terrifying. How evil the energy in this dark space is, they can even experience it personally, and immediately understand what Baron Mordo said just now. How dangerous it is to absorb the energy of the dark space. His worry is not unreasonable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42. Time goes back, shocking everyone. At the same time, they were secretly surprised. The video in the diary could make them feel like they were there, and they could fully feel how terrible the dark energy in the dark space was. It could corrupt people's hearts, stimulate the darkest part of people's hearts, distort people's thoughts, and even mutate. Is this the dark space? Tony Stark's face was extremely ugly. He couldn't imagine what he would do if he faced such an enemy in the future. Has the strength of this dark dimension Lord Dormammu reached the legendary father level? Endless dark energy is constantly spreading out and is about to grind the entire Hong Kong. It seems that everything can no longer be saved. It's too late and no one can stop him. Baron Mordo was in pain and despair. There would be no chance in this world anymore. No one can deal with Dormammu who has come in his true body. Facing Dormammu, the only thing to do is to prevent his true body from coming and keep it out of the main universe. If his true body comes, then the whole Earth will be finished. Baron Mordo was completely desperate, but Doctor Stephen Strange was not yet desperate. He said, "That's not necessarily true." He had already made up his mind and had an idea in his mind. As he spoke, he began to cast a spell, and the time stone hanging on his chest burst into emerald green light. Nick Fury narrowed his eyes. From the will of both parties in the face of such a desperate situation, it can be seen why this black man was not chosen by the Ancient One as the successor, while Stephen Strange could become the successor chosen by the Ancient One. The difference in the quality of both parties can be seen. Facing a desperate situation, Baron Mordo would only say that it was over and there was no hope for the Earth. But Doctor Strange would not give up and would fight to the last moment. This willpower that would never give up until the last moment, no, even at the last moment, is the key to his great achievements in the future. Then they saw a scene that shocked them. Doctor Strange began to use a time stone. With the input of magic power, everyone was shocked to see that the streets of Hong Kong, which had been completely destroyed, were recovering at an astonishing speed. No. Seeing this scene, Cassilis shouted hurriedly, but it was useless. Even Cassilis, who rushed over, went back directly as time went backwards. Then, Doctor Strange cast a spell on Baron Mordo to prevent him from being affected by the time stone. Baron Mordo was shocked to see the streets in front of him constantly recovering, and time began to go backwards madly. Everyone who read the diary looked at this scene in shock. Time goes backwards. Everyone took a breath and contributed their own strength to the global warming. If this magic is of the repair type, although it is surprising, it is still within their cognitive scope. After all, there are so many magic novels in the world, and there are many concepts about repair type spells in them, but this is different. It is not repaired by using a certain spell, but directly reversing time. It is also effective for people. Cassilis in the picture was obviously not completely affected by the time stone. He could still clearly know that time was flowing backwards, but the more so, the more he felt unacceptable. He had tried every means to eliminate the Ancient One and destroyed 2 temples, even the temple in Hong Kong. But now, it was restored by Doctor Stephen Strange with the time stone, so he had done it in vain. However, he could not interfere, and the power of the time stone was fully demonstrated at this time. The spell is effective. Doctor Strange said, shouting as he ran. We still have one chance. There was only one chance. Using the power of the time stone, he fought for a chance, but there was only one chance. If he failed, there would be nothing. But at this moment, something strange happened, and a powerful light burst out from Caecilius. He was struggling madly. He couldn't let Doctor Strange destroy the liberation of the world he had finally sought. Yes, for him, this is liberation. He is not doing bad things, but to let the earth and mankind gain eternal transcendence. A moment later, Caecilius actually broke free from the spell cast on him by the time stone. His strength is unimaginable. It took him only a few breaths to get rid of the influence of time reversal, and he chased him directly, knocking Doctor Strange to the ground with one blow. But he had no way to stop the reversal of time. All the buildings were repaired from their broken state little by little. In this time of continuous reversal, everything became a fatal threat. Those cars that went back, and those houses that were constantly repaired, made everything look extremely magnificent. These wizards also fought in this environment affected by the time stone. When everyone saw the battle of these wizards in the video, they felt incredible. Is this the way these wizards fight? While resisting the influence of time reversal, they attacked each other. It is really terrifying. Especially the many unique attack methods, which also opened everyone's eyes. And they also thought that as time goes backwards, ordinary people don't have the abilities of these wizards, and don't know what happened, so they may not know that such a war has ever happened here. This seems to explain why we never knew the existence of these wizards, not even once. Nick Fury thought about it, and seemed to understand why he never knew the existence of these wizards. If these wizards have such abilities, they can make time go back after the fight. Then no matter how much damage they cause, in the end, it will be seen from the outside world without a trace. He immediately broke out in a cold sweat on his back. He thought, maybe they have actually encountered similar things before, and encountered a battle between wizards, but because time goes backwards, they can't feel it. Looking at this picture, you can see that only wizards can be exempted from the influence to a certain extent, and even wizards will be affected. Only a very small number of people can escape the influence of this time reversal. It is even more impossible for ordinary people to know whether they have been affected. Doctor Stephen Strange could only say helplessly, "It violates the laws of nature, I know." He saw the Sorcerer King break free from the influence of time reversal, and thought he was going to talk about himself, so he hurriedly said, Chapter 43, Prehistoric Giant Crocodiles Under Earth's Shallow Waters. After all, when he used the power of time of the time stone, he was severely taught a lesson by the Mage King. Naturally, he was still frightened, but this was also a stopgap measure, and there was no other way. In the picture, the Mage King looked at the Dark Dimension Lord Dormammu in the terrifying Dark Dimension in the distance, and said, "Then let's violate it for a while." He is not a pedantic person. Naturally, he knows that compared with the survival of the Earth, using the time stone, to violate the laws of nature is nothing. If the Earth is gone, what is the law of nature? When the temple is repaired, they will come back. Doctor Strange said, "We must protect the temple, come on." Everyone understands that the success or failure of this matter depends on the survival of the temple. As long as the temple exists, Dormammu will be driven out sooner or later, but if the temple is gone, even without Dormammu, there will be others. There are countless dimensional demons in the endless dimension, and Dormammu is just one of the more powerful ones. At this time, Caecilius also broke free from the wall, and wanted to stop them. Everyone was thrown to the ground in an instant, and Doctor Strange's time reversal was directly interrupted. "Come on, Strange, get up and fight again, this matter should be over," Baron Mordo said hurriedly. He and the Mage King took a fighting stance to help Doctor Strange stop Caecilius and his followers who were chasing after him. "You can't defeat what is bound to happen," Caecilius just said coldly. "It's so beautiful, a world beyond time, beyond death." He looked at the endless darkness in the distance. That was the place he longed for, beyond life and death, the true eternity, and that was the real destination in his heart, beyond time. Hearing this, Doctor Strange suddenly thought of something, and he finally figured out how to fight Dormammu. Then he flew directly into the Dark Dimension. Another one who can fly. Everyone's eyelids jumped. They had just seen Thor and Wonder Woman flying. Obviously, Doctor Strange Stephen Strange's flying ability was even more chic. They didn't know how he did it, but they were extremely envious. Even if Tony Stark could fly, he had to rely on the power of the armor to achieve it, otherwise he was just an ordinary person. But Stephen Strange, who was also just an ordinary person, could fly after learning magic. How could this not make several people envious? After all, flying is really the ultimate dream of mankind. In order to realize this dream, there were Kangming lanterns in ancient times, and later there were airships, airplanes, and later there were spaceships, etc. Everyone sighed in their hearts. Magic is really convenient. It can open portals and fly. However, at this time, when the picture accompanied Doctor Strange Stephen Strange into the dark dimension, it suddenly became extremely grand. The endless silence and dark energy of the dark dimension almost made everyone feel oppressed and breathless in an instant. Countless huge mutated planets that seemed like cancer were scattered throughout the dark space, and Doctor Strange Stephen Strange flying in them was like an ant. Cassilis on Earth saw this scene and just said sarcastically, "He's gone. Even Strange has abandoned you," and bowed to the power of Dormammu. This shows that he is right. Darkness is eternal. Darkness is everything. Ancient One is wrong. He is right. Seeing this scene, Baron Mordo felt despair. The Earth might really be finished. And the people outside the screen looked at this scene. Although they knew from Lin Feng's previous words that Doctor Strange Stephen Strange had repelled Dormammu, they also felt a cold sweat in their hearts. The current situation seems almost unsolvable. In the picture, in the boundless dark universe, the weird, uncomfortable, and breathless dark universe seemed to be in the body of a certain terrifying creature. Each planet is a huge cell, which makes people look extremely uncomfortable. The vitality of the entire universe has been sucked dry, which is completely different from the empty universe of the main universe. Facing all this, Doctor Strange Stephen Strange did not hesitate at all. He used the time stone to cast a spell and freeze time at this moment. He had already thought of a way to face Dormammu. A moment later, a humanoid face appeared behind him. Dormammu appeared. The terrifying appearance was frightening. Just a head is bigger than a planet. What a shocking scene. At this time, everyone had an intuitive understanding of the Lord of the Dark Dimension mentioned in Lin Feng's diary. Even if a dimension is not the main universe, it contains countless planets. To be the master of such a dimension, Dormammu's power is simply terrifying to the extreme. And for the first time, everyone realized the threat of these dimensional demons. For the first time, I really felt how terrible these magicians had blocked for mankind over the years. But in the same way, in the diary, Lin Feng recorded that the Ancient One who could compete with Dormammu had to be at least of similar strength. In their minds, a picture suddenly appeared. In the small pond of the earth, they were jumping around, thinking that they were the masters of this small pond. Unexpectedly, under the water, there was a prehistoric giant crocodile. Faced with such a terrifying existence, even though he had already prepared himself mentally, Doctor Strange Stephen Strange was still frightened. However, he was not an ordinary person after all. He quickly calmed down and stared at the terrifying face in the air. "Dormammu, I'm here to negotiate terms," Doctor Strange Stephen Strange said. "You are here to die. Your world belongs to me, just like the other worlds." The people condensed by the dark energy were extremely hideous and terrifying. As the Lord of the Dark Dimension, Dormammu had seen all kinds of enemies. How could he listen to the words of such a small human being like an ant? Even though countless years ago, he was once one of the ant-like humans, but that was so long ago, that it seemed like a lifetime ago. For so many years, he was blocked outside the Earth by the Ancient One, and he was just one step away from entering. And now, all this is finally coming to an end. Chapter 44, Doctor Strange's 1001 Ways to Die. In an instant, Doctor Strange was killed by Dormammu. Doctor Strange activated a magic shield to block him, but there was no way at all. Under the crushing of Dormammu's absolute strength, any of his defense was meaningless. Just like that, dead. Tony Stark looked at Doctor Strange being instantly blasted into slag, and his heart was full of disbelief, because he was still looking forward to seeing Doctor Strange fight back, and achieve the great feat of forcing back the dark dimensional Lord Dormammu as mentioned in Lin Feng's diary. Now, he was killed by someone. and this is the protagonist mentioned by Lin Feng. Do you understand the value of the protagonist? This dark dimensional Lord Dormammu is so terrifying. However, at this time, a barrage of Lin Feng suddenly floated across the diary. On Doctor Strange's 1001 Ways to Die. Everyone was a little confused, but they soon understood. Could this be referring to the many completely different ways of Doctor Strange's death? Are these all incorrect timelines? Will he die many times? At this time, Tony Stark said a little unbelievably, but he is already dead. How can he be resurrected? And this Dormammu is too terrifying. He easily killed a protagonist mentioned by Lin Feng. At present, he can't deal with such an existence at all, and he doesn't even dare to think about it. Even if he is as smart as he is, he can't think of how to deal with this Dormammu, and how to make Dormammu retreat. As for defeating him, it is basically impossible to defeat him. And this is the horror of the so-called father level boss. They haven't figured out what level the so-called father level is, but it doesn't prevent them from feeling some of the horror of the father level. But why do such a big man have to keep an eye on the Earth? Tony Stark said a little unbelievably. In terms of the position of the Earth in the universe, let alone not being the center of the universe, even in the Milky Way, it belongs to the countryside in the countryside. A small broken place, no resources, no technology. But such a small broken place actually produced a big man like the supreme sorcerer of the magic side, Gu Yi, and was targeted by such a terrifying existence as Dormammu. He really couldn't figure it out, because reality needs to have a certain logic. Even on Earth, only when you discover oil will the US military breed. How come there is nothing in this small broken place, but it has attracted such a terrifying existence? But before everyone can think about it, they saw a very bizarre scene. Doctor Strange Stephen Strange, who was supposed to be dead, reappeared, as if the Doctor Strange they saw dead just now was just an illusion. Is it an illusion? Doctor Strange Stephen Strange in the picture just looked at the timestamp left by the time gem on his wrist, and then said to Dormammu in front of him again, "Dormammu, I'm here to negotiate." Everyone was stunned. What's going on? How come Doctor Strange appeared and repeated what he just said? This is completely different from what they thought. Facing the sudden appearance of Doctor Strange, Dormammu said coldly, "You are here to die. Your world belongs to me now." But he felt something was wrong as soon as he finished speaking, because he realized that he seemed to have said this. What happened? Is it an illusion? Dormammu said in disbelief. With his power as a father level boss, who has merged with the dark dimension, how could he still have an illusion? No one in the world can cast an illusion on him, not even the annoying human wizard Ancient One. No, this is reality. Doctor Strange said calmly. Very good. Dormammu was enraged and killed Doctor Strange again, killing him instantly. The strength of the two sides was too far apart. Not to mention Doctor Strange, even the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One would not be his opponent in this dark dimension. But just after he killed Doctor Strange, he found that another identical Doctor Strange floated over from above. Dormammu, I'm here to negotiate terms. And this Doctor Stephen Strange also said loudly, I seem to understand a little bit about the so-called 1001 Ways to Die. Tony Stark couldn't help but say. Everyone suddenly realized that this scene was still very scary. What is going on? Dormammu was also shocked. He finally realized that something was wrong. He had killed so many Doctor Stranges in a row, but every time he just killed one, there would be an identical one popping up, and he couldn't kill them all. Just now, when Doctor Stephen Strange cast the time magic, even Cassilis and the others were able to have a certain degree of resistance. Although they could not completely resist the influence of the time magic, they could feel that time was being reversed. Not to mention Dormammu, what kind of strength he is. Until now, how can we not see where the problem is? Just like the ability you gave Cassilis from your world. Doctor Strange said very calmly. He has completely awakened and how to deal with this powerful opponent who is so powerful that he can't match it at all. If they fight head on, let alone him, even his teacher, Master Ancient One, can't defeat him in the dark dimension. But the teacher has his own way, which is to use the three temples to block the arrival of Dormammu, so that the dark energy infiltrated by Dormammu will be much easier to deal with. And he also has his own way. That is the time stone. I also brought some power from my side. Doctor Strange said calmly. That is time. Infinite cycle of time. Doctor Strange used his only trump card. Although simple, but undoubtedly very useful. Maybe there is no way to completely block Dormammu's perception. He is the only existence in the heavens and the worlds that cannot be reset by the time flow, but because of this, he has some chances of winning. There is no doubt that this statement also completely angered Dormammu, and even Dormammu couldn't help but directly transform into a form in the universe, and transformed into a huge hand to smash down Doctor Strange. You are so brave. Dormammu was furious, and his huge palm could even blow up the entire planet. No. Doctor Strange just finished this sentence, and was slapped to death by Dormammu. Chapter 45 Dormammu, I'm here to negotiate terms. However, this death was just the beginning of his countless deaths, but it was not the end. Dormammu, I'm here to negotiate. The same opening, the same Doctor Strange. He came again, and he flew down from above with his own time loop. You can't always cycle like this. Dormammu roared. He was actually plotted against by a tiny human, and it was simply unreasonable to be trapped in his own time like this. There was a bit of fear in his voice, because he was also afraid that he would really be trapped in this endless time loop, even if he killed the man in front of him 1,000 times or 10,000 times. So what? Hearing this, Doctor Stephen Strange just said very calmly, in fact, I can. Isn't it like this now? You and I are trapped in the same moment. Infinite loop. Dormammu was so angry that, if he had known that this person was like this, he would probably have killed him at the first time. But he was still plotted against by Doctor Strange. Dormammu was furious and roared, then you will die countless times. That's right, but the people on Earth will survive. Doctor Strange said lightly. But you will suffer. Dormammu roared again and again, trying to scare Doctor Strange. But Doctor Strange just smiled lightly and said, suffering is an old friend. He used to be a pampered person, and could be said to be a very typical American elite middle class person. Although he was far from being comparable to a local tyrant like Tony Stark, he was also glamorous. However, he has suffered more recently, perhaps more than in his entire life, and he has gradually gotten used to it and become numb. But as soon as he said this, he was slapped to death by Dormammu in anger. Dormammu, I'm here to negotiate. 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 Dormammu, Dormammu, Dormammu. Next, everyone finally saw the 1001 ways of Doctor Strange's death, being beaten to death in various ways. Stop it. Dormammu roared. He tried to stop this time loop. He could kill Doctor Strange 1,000 times. 10,000 times, or even millions of times, tens of millions of times, anytime, anywhere. But what's the use? If he can't solve this time loop, he will have to waste time here with this tiny human in front of him endlessly. You can never win. Dormammu roared, with a bit of fear in his voice. Yes, but I can afford to lose. Doctor Strange stood up from the ground in a very embarrassed manner, but his will was still strong, even if he had to die countless times. I lost once, and I will do it again, and again, forever. Doctor Strange stood up slowly, panting, but he said with full confidence, I will make you my prisoner. No, stop, you stop. Dormammu roared, broke through the defense, and beat Doctor Stephen Strange to death with a roar. He was really scared. If he continued like this, he would really be trapped in this reincarnation forever. This is not a cage, but it is better than a cage. Even as strong as Dormammu, he couldn't endure such a day. Stop, let me out. Dormammu finally compromised. He realized that, no matter how many times he killed this human being in front of him, 100 times, 200 times, or 1,000 times, 10,000 times, he would still come out from another place on time. This man's will was so strong that it could be tested. No, I'm here to negotiate. Doctor Strange was not so anxious at this time, because he knew that the offensive and defensive situation had changed. This time, Dormammu finally didn't kill Doctor Strange. As soon as they met, he knew that he couldn't completely break the will of the man in front of him. On the contrary, he was about to be tortured by the man in front of him and his will collapsed. He could only ask, what kind of terms do you want to negotiate? Take your fanatics away from the earth, stop doing evil in my world, and never come back. Doctor Strange breathed a sigh of relief and finally saw the hope of success. He said, if you agree, I will stop this cycle for a period of time. The scene turned again, and came to the urban area of Hong Kong again. At this time, Hong Kong was in a state of time stagnation. Baron Mordo climbed up from the ground and said, cheer up, Strange. Keep fighting. This matter should be over. It's so beautiful. A world beyond time, beyond death. Cassilis looked at the world of the dark universe in the distance, and said with longing, that was the eternal world beyond death, that he longed for. But this scene seemed a little strange to the people who were reading the diary, because the same scene had happened once before. So, this is the time being reset. Everyone looked at each other. It should be like this. Otherwise what happened? Why did it happen again? I just felt extremely magical in my heart. This time magic is really amazing. At this time, Doctor Strange Stephen Strange slowly floated down, looking at everyone calmly. At this time, Cassilis, who was just fascinated by the dark dimension, finally realized that something was wrong and shouted, what did you do? Although his strength was not enough to fully detect the reset of time. After all, not everyone is Dormammu, but he also noticed some fluctuations in time magic, which was very wrong. My terms are negotiated. Doctor Strange Stephen Strange said with a smile. This time, he finally won. After dying countless times, he finally completely ended the dark event of Dormammu's advent. Although it was in this way, there was a gap compared to his teacher's direct repulsion of Dormammu, but it was not bad. Ancient One defeated Dormammu with his own tyrannical strength. Although he relied on the power of the three major temples to prevent Dormammu from coming in person, it was still very remarkable. After all, although Ancient One has lived for hundreds and thousands of years and seems to be an antique, he is still a junior in front of Dormammu. Dormammu has become a super senior in the magic world of the dimensional demon god in the distant super ancient earth. Chapter 46 The Terrible Consequences of the Timeline Change. Soon, Caecilius found something wrong, because his body was turning into powder. He said with a bit of fear, what is this? This is what you want. Doctor Strange smiled and said, as a part of Dormammu's life, you may not like it. Then Caecilius and his followers turned into ashes and merged with the dark multiverse. The video ended here, but the shock it brought to everyone was not over yet, but just beginning. Before, everyone was a little bit indifferent to what Lin Feng said in his diary, that Dormammu would swallow the earth in one bite. The earth is too big, how could anyone do it? For example, even if the technology side has the means to destroy a planet, that is destruction, and swallowing a planet in one bite is not a matter of the same level. But now, the Dormammu who appeared in front of them, his head alone is as big as a planet. The scene of Dormammu's huge face appearing was enough to shock everyone. Even if the planets in this universe are big and small, no matter how small the planet is, it is not comparable to humans. This is just Dormammu's head. If his true body is revealed, what a terrifying existence it will be. Especially such a terrifying existence, but it doesn't even have a physical body. How can we fight it? There is no chance of winning at all. The most powerful means of mankind is just a nuclear bomb. But nuclear bombs have no way to deal with this level of terrifying existence. The end of the diary record. Everyone looked at each other. I now fully understand Lin Feng's fear. Enemies of this level are not something we can deal with. Let Stephen Strange deal with it. Hawkeye Barton said. Originally, his combat power was at the bottom of the Avengers, and he might not even be better than Black Widow. This level of villain is not something they can deal with. But we didn't expect that Stephen Strange would use this method to force Dormammu back in the end. Coulson Anke said. If it were us, we wouldn't have any chance of winning. Human weapons can't even destroy the Earth. At most, they can only destroy the life on the planet. For the planet itself, it's just a tickle, not to mention this level of existence. It's too scary. Now we have to thank those magicians for building 3 temples to help us stop Dormammu, Nick Fury said. But we also have to ensure the safety of the 3 temples. As long as the temples are fine, Dormammu should not be able to come. Otherwise, he should have come long ago. Those guys don't look good. We have to find a way to monitor them. It's not that Nick Fury didn't want to take action against Cassilis, but he was a magician after all, and the magician's methods were too strange. He didn't know how to deal with it. Although he was worried that they would destroy the three temples, he didn't want to easily provoke these dark magicians. And there was still a guarantee in the end, that is Stephen Strange, who will become Doctor Strange in the future. The three temples mentioned here, one is in New York, one is in Hong Kong, and the other one is unknown. Tony Stark said. But it doesn't matter. Since they are all temples, it is very likely that the architectural styles are similar. As long as one of them is found, it is very likely that the location of the other temples can be deduced. The location just now is in Hong Kong, so we can start from here. Jarvis, search according to the appearance of the building in the video to determine the location of the Hong Kong temple, and then scan and model the buildings in New York to see if there are similar buildings. Tony Stark said. Okay, sir. Jarvis said. The comparison results are out. The location in the video is locked. Further comparison with nearby buildings is completed to determine the location of the temple in the video. Jarvis quickly gave an answer. Or three-dimensional projection of the temple appeared in front of everyone. After a while, even the New York temple was searched out, because the architectural style is in the same vein. Through this method, the third temple was also determined to be in London. Now all three temples have appeared. Now the locations of the three temples have appeared. I will send them to you later, but I hope you don't get close or interfere. Tony Stark said. Because these three temples will be destroyed, the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One will also die. If Stephen Strange cannot become Doctor Strange because of our interference, then we cannot afford the consequences. If he can successfully become Doctor Strange, then no matter how big the disaster is, he will be able to resist it. When saying this, Tony Stark also felt desperate because he was not a person who was used to pinning his hopes on others. If the sky falls, there will be a tall person to support it, and he is that tall person. Now he found that he could not support it, and he could not even resist it a little. So he could only put his hope on the surgeon. This feeling was very desperate and helpless, but he could only choose to accept it. As far as he knew, the technology side really had no way to deal with Dormammu. Yeah. Nick Fury nodded, and it was obvious that he thought so too. It was a very uncomfortable choice for him, who had a strong desire for control, not to interfere if he could. But the key, I think, is the ornament on Stephen's chest. I think, although this time magic is amazing, it is obviously not something that everyone can play with. Nick Fury thought for a while, and then said, otherwise, Dormammu should not be a threat, and those followers of Dormammu don't seem to know any related spells, and there is no way to completely resist time magic. Even Dormammu can be controlled by time magic. I think that should not be Stephen's own strength. Everyone nodded and agreed with this judgment. Maybe this is some secret treasure of those wizards. After all, in this kind of magic novels, there are always such settings, right? For example, The Lord of the Rings. Tony Stark shrugged and said, but what is inside? Probably, only Lin Feng knows. This time is not without gain. At least we know that there is such a group of magicians. Nick Fury said. He originally wanted to contact these magicians to see if there is any way to learn some magic or recruit some talents. But when I thought about the consequences of changing the timeline, I gave up the idea. Chapter 47. Great strength increase. Palladium eyes come to the door. Knowing the existence of Dormammu is undoubtedly a great pressure for everyone, especially when they can't deal with him. That night, another sleepless night. But for Lin Feng, life is still going on in an orderly manner. After a period of adaptation, he has been able to fully adapt to the primary template of the motherland. In terms of strength, it has completely reached 10 times that of the original injection of super soldier serum. Other speeds and endurance have reached an astonishing level. And he can feel that he is only one step away from giving birth to the superpowers of many motherlands, or the magical powers that the Chinese like to say. In this state, Lin Feng is no longer afraid of the encirclement and suppression of small-scale armies, or even the encirclement and suppression of medium-sized armies. However, he is still a mortal body, and light weapons can't do anything to him, and he can't even break through the defense, but humans still have various heavy weapons that can threaten him to a certain extent. Many people have no concept of human heavy weapons, and even in movies and TV shows, the terrible power of human heavy weapons will be weakened, so that there will be absurd situations such as zombies defeating human armies. In fact, in reality, the power of human heavy weapons is much more terrible than what is shown in movies and TV shows. So Lin Feng did not get carried away. Especially in this world, the water is very deep, and he naturally does not want to be the first bird to stand out. After all, he does not have the protagonist halo. Like Captain America Steve Rogers, in terms of strength, he is really not enough in front of Lin Feng, but he has the protagonist halo to protect him, so he can be evenly matched with anyone. But Lin Feng knows better. To be precise, the only one who has the protagonist halo is the Captain America on the correct sacred timeline. Other Captain Americas do not have such good treatment. Some have become zombies, some have been attacked and died, and all kinds of tragic things have happened. The essential reason for achieving this protagonist halo is that TVA cut out his failed timeline behind the scenes. For example, what if Captain America fails to inject the super soldier serum? What else can be done? TVA directly cuts out this wrong timeline. It is so simple and crude. The so-called protagonist halo of the protagonists on the sacred timeline actually comes from this. If you are not the protagonist on the sacred timeline, it is too easy to die, and you will be killed by the quacks. Just look at Wanda killing all the Illuminati by herself in the 616 universe. You will know that superheroes without the protagonist halo are as fragile college students. Even Captain Marvel, who is said to be a father-level existence who can compete with Thanos, died without a sound in front of Wanda. And from the outrageous changes in this universe, it is obviously not the so-called sacred timeline. Although Lin Feng does not know why the current TVA did not come to cut off this timeline, he knows that this is definitely not the sacred timeline. Everyone's life is actually very fragile. Without the bloodlock, people have to be low-key. Boom. A loud bang came, echoing in the entire practice room. The terrifying sonic boom swept across. It was Lin Feng practicing. Since he became financially independent, he bought an abandoned factory near the community where he lived, and after simple renovation, he turned it into a training room for him. It was true that, after reaching his level of strength, if he released all his strength, he could create an extremely terrifying strong wind with every punch and kick. If the place was small, it would be easy to shatter glass, furniture, etc. When he punched out, his own strength was stimulated to the extreme, and a steel plate in front of him exploded on the spot. This also marked that he had reached the realm of Dunjin in Chinese martial arts. At this level, he felt a vigorous force boiling in his body. To be precise, he felt the transformation at the cellular level. It was a slow evolution. No wonder it is said that from Huajin to Dunjin, it is like a monkey to a human, from a human to an immortal, and it is completely different from the Mingjin, Unjin, and Huajin of the simple power generating techniques. Lin Feng felt the energy in his body. At this point, there was even a certain degree of genetic transformation. Especially Lin Feng's physical fitness is very abnormal. Those who have reached Dunjin in history, such as Zhang Sanfeng, Zhang Daoling, Xiang Yu, etc., cannot catch up with Lin Feng before the transformation after their physical transformation. It's a bit like the super soldier serum, evolving from the genetic level. The starting point is different. Lin Feng is now at a terrifying level that others cannot reach after Dunjin transformation. According to the situation of this genetic level transformation, he may not need to draw the subsequent motherland template. He can generate supernatural powers, laser eyes, flying ability, etc. by himself. That's incredible. This means that he has unlimited possibilities and can even get rid of his dependence on diary lottery. Although it is only a possibility, it is better than having no hope. This made him more determined to take the path of national martial arts. He originally coveted the increasing combat power that practicing national martial arts could bring him, but now this is no longer the main reason. Now the main thing is to find that this is actually a feasible way to develop his own potential. Although there are few pedestrians on this road from ancient times to the present, it is a visible road after all. Lin Feng never aims too high. Even if he can draw stronger abilities, he will not give up. Suddenly, there was a sound of hurried footsteps outside the factory. Then there was a huge roar, and the door was blown open. The terrible airwave caused by the explosion swept across. Then a group of people wearing camouflage uniforms and professional equipment comparable to those of the US Special Forces rushed in. The leader was tall and wore a strange tights. The headgear on his head was painted with circles of patterns like a target. The identity of the person who came was already obvious. It was none other than Jin Bing's #1 thug, Palladium Eyes. Lin Feng patted the dust off his body and looked at Palladium Eyes and his men who rushed in directly, carrying a submachine gun and a rocket launcher, and his face condensed. There is no doubt that Palladium Eyes had found his trace. During this period, since he became Homelander, he has fought against Kingpin's crimes more than once. For him, it was just a matter of convenience. Unlike Spider-Woman, a street hero who specializes in fighting Kingpin, he only fights the big ones. After several times, Kingpin has lost at least hundreds of millions of dollars. He also enjoys this game. However, wherever he goes, there must be traces. Kingpin is not a fool. He has strong abilities and has very strong financial resources and connections, so he finally caught some traces. Kill at the door. Chapter 48, Battle Power Exposed, Kill them all. Kingpin can be called the Underground Emperor of New York, and even has a huge influence in the whole United States. Although he has few extraordinary masters, he has many elite personnel such as ordinary US Marines, Special Forces, etc. He can even get the most professional equipment for these people, which can be called a small army. There are more than 100 people who broke in this time. The leader saw Lin Feng's appearance and was a little stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect that the Asian youth in front of him was the countryman who ruined their business. Although Kingpin traced here based on clues, he didn't know Lin Feng's identity. Breaking into the owner's house without permission, it's really polite. Lin Feng's eyes were boiling with murderous intent. Now that this place is destroyed, the movement caused will not be small, and it will be troublesome to deal with it at that time. The most important thing is that Lin Feng doesn't want to implicate his family in this matter. Many superheroes choose to hide their names because they don't want to reveal their identities. Superheroes who have revealed their identities have never had a good ending and often end up implicating their relatives and friends. Even after Tony Stark publicly admitted his identity in Iron Man 3, Dr. Killian still sent people to blow up his mansion, and he was almost buried inside. To be honest, if it weren't for the protection of the protagonist's halo, he would have died in the mansion on the spot. So if Lin Feng's mentality before was still somewhat of a game of the world, and he didn't take Kingpin seriously, then now that Kingpin can track down his training room and see his face, it will sooner or later be traced to his family. This is something Lin Feng can't tolerate. Thinking of this, Lin Feng's murderous intent began to boil. Kill. Palladium Eyes didn't hesitate. In fact, before tracking here, they also checked multiple live videos, in which Lin Feng's strength was amazing, especially his fighting skills, which should be learned from Chinese martial arts. Palladium Eyes himself is also a master of combat, so it is easy to see that Lin Feng's combat methods include a variety of Chinese martial arts combat methods. Such combat methods, combined with the strength that Lin Feng had shown before, which was almost at the peak of human physique, made him an extremely dangerous person in his eyes. In this case, he did not intend to capture him and ask him, but to attack him directly first. However, although he thought he was well prepared and made arrangements for Lin Feng's combat power, he actually underestimated Lin Feng. Da 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 da. The sound of a burst of submachine gun fire came from the scene. During this process, Lin Feng showed an extremely terrifying speed, and he completely avoided the fire of these submachine guns in a flash. First of all, he targeted those portable rocket launchers. If they were allowed to bombard them, the factory would really be finished. He took out marbles from his pocket. This was a long-range attack method he prepared for himself, before he evolved long-range attack methods such as laser eyes. These marbles are specially made of a certain alloy, and are very strong. At this time, they exerted unimaginable power in Lin Feng's hands. Swish! A shrill sound of breaking through the air came, and a Jinbing armed man holding a rocket launcher in the back fell down with a muffled groan, and a blood hole was directly blasted out of his forehead. Palladium Eyes felt his hair stand on end in an instant. His strength was the strongest among the crowd, so his perception of danger was also the strongest. Almost in an instant, he felt the horror of the man in front of him. The speed of the marbles thrown casually was like a ghost, and it could actually exceed the speed of sound. The shrill sound of breaking through the air was clearly the sound of sonic boom, after exceeding the speed of sound. Is this a human? He is also a master of weapon throwing, but he is definitely not as good as Lin Feng. To be precise, he is a master of skills, while Lin Feng is purely a master of strength in this regard. It is entirely relying on his super terrifying dynamic vision, combined with his inhuman hand strength, to achieve such an outrageous effect. However, in such a short time, when he was shocked, Lin Feng used several marbles as a group, and in just a few breaths, he killed all the armed men holding rocket launchers. Kill him, fire! Palladium Eyes shouted in horror. After all, he was just a standard villain among street heroes. In terms of strength, he was at the peak of human strength. Facing a superhuman like Lin Feng, he had no chance of winning. Lin Feng's figure was like a ghost. He instantly appeared in front of those armed personnel. With the skill of hitting the bull from behind a mountain, he punched a hole in their bulletproof vests. Their backs instantly protruded and were killed by Lin Feng's punch. Anyone in front of him was killed with one punch. More than 100 elite special forces level armed personnel, coupled with luxurious firepower, could fight even against thousands of terrorists, but they were still no match for Lin Feng, and were killed in just a moment. At this time, Lin Feng demonstrated the fighting skills he had learned during this period to the fullest. However, this is still not his limit. If he develops laser eyes in the future, they will all die with a glance, which is much more convenient than now. This is also the fundamental reason why Lin Feng is so low-key now. Although he has taken the first step to be a different person, he is still far from being invincible. Faced with such a rapid slaughter, even a man with a strong psychological quality like Palladium Eyes was frightened to death. In a flash, Lin Feng punched out, and in an instant, a terrifying gale was formed, and Palladium Eyes was about to be killed with one punch. Palladium Eyes could not resist at all, as if he had encountered a prehistoric beast, and was intimidated by Lin Feng's momentum, and could not move at all. Just when he thought his head was going to be blown up by this punch, he saw that the sandbag-sized fist stopped 1 centimeter in front of him. At this time, he realized that his whole body was soaked in cold sweat, as if he had just been fished out of the water. At this time, this supercriminal who regarded life and death as a child's play, truly felt for the first time what it meant to have great terror between life and death. Although he usually put life and death aside when performing tasks, he thought he was not afraid of death. But being shot to death and dying in the hands of Lin Feng, a human-shaped beast, are both death, but they are not the same experience at all. It turns out that death is such a terrible thing. Now, he is finally saved. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Killing the Kingpin's Lair. For the first time, Palladium Eyes felt that being alive was such a wonderful thing. He used to think that he was not afraid of death, and that it was just a hole. But now he understood that death is different from death. Now he could no longer muster the intention of resisting. Take me to find Kingpin. You can live, otherwise, you will die, Lin Feng said. If Palladium Eyes just found his foothold by accident, then at most he would kill all of them. However, looking at the fully armed killing, it must not be just an accidental discovery. Most likely, Kingpin also knows about this. Since Kingpin knows, this game of playing house should finally end. Spider-Woman can't deal with Kingpin. To be precise, it is difficult to deal with Kingpin, but it does not mean that Lin Feng can't deal with Kingpin. Even if Kingpin has undergone more transformations and his own combat power is a bit outrageous, it is still not enough compared to Lin Feng, who is not a human being. In the final analysis, he is just a villain in a street hero story. Palladium Eyes nodded with difficulty at this time. Facing such a terrifying Lin Feng, does he have any other choice? No, he could only choose to accept it. At this time, in a manor in the suburbs of New York, a bald man with a huge body, like a little giant, suddenly stood up from his position, staring at the screen in the surveillance. These pictures were uploaded from the cameras on the helmets of those armed men. He never thought that Palladium I would betray him. This has never happened before. Palladium I has failed before, but he has never betrayed him. This is a super madman who has put life and death aside. After serving him, he has always been loyal, but he didn't expect that he would be beaten by Lin Feng today and surrender directly. But it must be said that the strength shown by Lin Feng is really terrible. Even he was extremely shocked. But it's good like this. When you get here, life and death are not up to you. Jinbing sneered. This suburban manor is his real fortress, and it contains his most powerful power. Even if the so-called Iron Man comes, he will have to suffer here. He had memorized Lin Feng's face. After killing him, all of this man's relatives and friends would also have to die. Terror and high pressure were the real secrets of his rule. After driving for an hour, Lin Feng and Palladium I finally arrived outside Jinbing's huge manor. Palladium I had told him that from the outside, this was an ordinary manor, but in fact, the interior had been transformed into a fortress. Even if the regular army wanted to attack, it would cost a lot, not to mention Lin Feng alone. Palladium I was already scared at this time. When he thought of Jinbing's methods, his scalp was numb, but he didn't dare to betray him. The man in front of him was even more of a human-shaped beast. As soon as the two came to the outside of the manor, the sound of a helicopter came. 3 armed helicopters approached quickly from a distance and soon killed them. I wanted to play this kind of house game with you, but since you have seen my face, I can't let you stay, Lin Feng said with a sneer. At this time, he was also slightly surprised. With the improvement of his strength, it must be said that his mentality has also changed greatly. In the face of danger, he is more bold and his mentality is more sharp. He now found that it was absurd to ask the weak to have the mentality of the strong. Only the strong can have the mentality of the strong, and the weak are the mentality of the weak. And there is no doubt that Lin Feng is now a super strong man compared to Jinbing and Palladium I. Facing Lin Feng and the other two, the armed helicopter started firing from a distance, and the huge machine guns began to sweep. Palladium I instinctively dodged at the first time. Although he is a master of weapon throwing, he is just an ordinary person after all. But Lin Feng is different. He didn't even dodge. Those machine guns hit his body and only made a ding-dong sound. Seeing this scene, Palladium I was dumbfounded. Is this a human? You tell me, this is a human? If you had said that you have such a strong ability, how dare I trouble you? Before, Lin Feng's battles were basically to dodge these bullets with speed. This was the first time he showed his invulnerability. Then he saw Lin Feng kick the broken floor fragments around him like a football, hitting the pilot of an armed helicopter, killing him. The stone penetrated his body and exploded the entire armed helicopter. The next two were treated in the same way, and they were unable to resist Lin Feng. Lin Feng shook his head. After all, he was just a primary template of the motherland. If he had laser eyes, he could directly sweep and explode these armed helicopters. Palladium I was completely dumbfounded. When he looked at Lin Feng, he was no longer looking at a monster, but at a god. Is this something a normal person can do? If Palladium I had a little idea and wanted that kingpin to get rid of Lin Feng, now he knew that it was impossible, and he immediately extinguished that little idea. Let's go. Lin Feng ignored Palladium I, who was already scared silly and didn't know that the combat power he had just displayed had scared Palladium I, a supervillain, out of psychological trauma. Under the leadership of Palladium I, Lin Feng rushed directly into the manor. He encountered various obstacles along the way, but they were no match for Lin Feng at all. Even Palladium I joined the battle. If he had some thoughts before, now he was completely lying down. Lin Feng's fighting power was not that of a normal human. Finally, as Lin Feng's cleaning speed became faster and faster, he came to the largest secret room under the manor, which was closed by a thick alloy door. This is where Jinbing rests every day. After it is completely closed, only he has the key to open it. Palladium I said hurriedly. He was also a little embarrassed. To be honest, this alloy door was made by him personally. Naturally, He knew that it was to the point where even the army could not open it for a while, even if it used heavy firepower. If we can find some heavy weapons, maybe we can break it. Palladium Eye looked at Lin Feng carefully and said, "No need." Lin Feng sneered, and in a flash, he kicked out with a fierce kick. Boom. The entire alloy door collapsed with a creaking sound, stirring up countless waves of dust. Seeing this scene, even though he was prepared, Palladium's eyes still looked like he had seen a ghost. Chapter 50, Killing Jinbing with one strike, shocking Palladium. Palladium Eye couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Is this a normal human? Is this a human? Is this an alien in human skin? Lin Feng's supervision caught Jinbing's huge figure like a hill behind the gate, with a horrified expression on his face. Obviously, he probably never thought that Lin Feng could kick down his alloy door so simply and violently. If he had known that he had provoked such a monster, he might not have bothered Lin Feng at all. Even if he was destroyed by him, what would it matter? Is it more important than being alive? He should have run away when Lin Feng decided to make trouble for him. Chinese? Korean? Japanese? Jinbing asked. Chinese. Lin Feng said lightly. Hearing that Lin Feng was Chinese, Jinbing even switched to Mandarin and said, "I have no grudges against you. Why do you do this? I can't help it. Who told you to find my trace? I have heard of your cruelty. If my family is implicated, it will be bad. So I decided to end this game of playing house with you and get rid of you completely," Lin Feng said lightly. Jinbing was stunned. He didn't expect Lin Feng to have such an attitude. How could he destroy his business worth hundreds of millions of dollars just play house in his eyes? As the underground emperor of New York, there are countless people who are against him, including superheroes. Spider-Woman is just one of them, and Daredevil is also one of them. When these superheroes face themselves, they all need to fight with their lives. It can be said that they all have a strong sense of justice to fight with themselves until now. These people give Jinbing a headache, but it's just a headache. After all, they can't really threaten him. But the person in front of him is different. He needs to do his best to deal with him, but in his eyes, it's just a game of playing house. But thinking about the fighting power displayed by Lin Feng at this time, it seems to be justified. Suddenly he just felt a little ridiculous. The way Lin Feng looked at him was similar to the way he looked at ordinary people, just like looking at ants. In this case, let's fight. Jinbing stared at Lin Feng and said. He took off his suit, revealing a body of extremely terrifying muscles. Palladium saw Jinbing in this state, and the fear in his heart seemed to return a little. He used to work for Jinbing loyally. In addition to Jinbing's generosity and high pay, the most important thing was that he was really defeated by Jinbing. In terms of fighting power, Jinbing's strength is also at the ceiling level. In a flash, Jinbing flew up directly without giving Lin Feng a chance to attack first. This punch could even penetrate the steel plate. But the next second, his punch was caught in Lin Feng's hand, and he couldn't even shake Lin Feng's body. Impossible. Jinbing was sweating profusely, and he was still in disbelief. He knew too well how powerful his punch was, but he was no match for Lin Feng. However, the next second, Lin Feng moved, and a punch was thrown out like lightning, instantly piercing Jinbing's chest muscles. In an instant, the terrifying force crushed his internal organs. Jinbing was killed with one blow, and his eyes could not believe it until his death. The gap between his strength and Lin Feng was so big. After Lin Feng killed Jinbing with one blow, he stepped on Jinbing's head, and it was over. It's not that he is perverted and has a habit of abusing corpses. It's just that in this world of superheroes, there are all kinds of strange ways of resurrection. Even Jinbing has been killed and resurrected. These people have the aura of supervillains. Although they are not as good as the aura of the protagonist, they are more difficult to deal with at times. In order to eliminate future troubles, Lin Feng can only feel at ease in this way. He is not afraid that Jinbing can pose any threat to him, but he doesn't want to implicate his parents in this world. It's over? Palladium Eyes looked at this clean and tidy battle in disbelief. In his eyes, his former boss Jinbing, who was already the ceiling of human combat power, died just like that. He couldn't even struggle a little. For Lin Feng, dealing with Jinbing was essentially no different from dealing with a random soldier. Anyway, they were both killed with one strike. It's conceivable how outrageous Lin Feng's inhumanity is now. Lin Feng looked at the mixture of blood and brains splattered all over his body. This set of clothes couldn't be used. When he was strafed by the armed helicopter before, his clothes were torn. Although those bullets couldn't break Lin Feng's defense, they could still tear his clothes easily. Now Lin Feng looked like a beggar. But at last, the biggest threat was solved. Eliminate the trouble forever. Don't kill me, I'm willing to serve you. Palladium. I saw the look in Lin Feng's eyes when he turned his head and said in a servile manner. It was also the first time he discovered that he could still be so servile. Even when facing Jinbing, he still had his own pride. What can you do for me? Lin Feng said. I can help you deal with many things that are inconvenient to deal with. Although your strength is invincible, you can't handle everything by yourself, right? Please give me a chance. I will definitely not let you down. Palladium. I said hurriedly. In the face of the reality of great terror between life and death, he completely put down his self-esteem. Lin Feng thought about it, and it seemed that there was no harm in saving his life. As Palladium. I said, there are some things he can't do, but he can't do everything by himself, right? That makes sense. Lin Feng touched his chin and said, how about this? How much money has Jinbing laundered? Do you know the account number? I know. Palladium. I said hurriedly, fearing that Lin Feng would feel useless. Most of his assets are shameful, but over the years, he has laundered $2 billion one after another, all in the bearer account of Swiss bank. I can help you find it. 2 billion. It's a lot. Lin Feng said. Although it may not be a lot for super rich people like Tony Stark, Kingpin is just an underground gangster after all, and it would be good if he could launder 2 billion. Most of his assets are still black assets, which are not visible to the public, and Lin Feng does not want to be associated with them. You transfer all the 2 billion, and then I will give you an account. But can you manage the underground empire left by Kingpin? Lin Feng asked. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.